dun. All right, I think we're ready.
We're ready.
On time today. Look at us.
Oh, look at the brain on Brad.
All right. Today's Ben Joravsky show for your Friday, July. Ben, pop quiz. Friday, July
26th.
Nice. Good job.
Ball give me.
Your Ben Joravsky show for Friday, July 26th is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board. Wait, let me turn the on-air light on. Yeah.
Whoa, damn, that's some trippy stuff, boy.
Can't really see it on the camera, though.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. All right. We need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky show. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126, District 8, not Aerosmith. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, that's Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky show. And, of course, today's program is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky show starts now. Thank goodness it is Friday, July 26th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky show. Today on the program, we're going to hear a lot about that movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, okay? Just a little forewarning right there. But we do have guests and political content. Do not worry. It's another Romana Rundown with Sun-Times editor Romana Hussein, former host of Chicago Newsroom, and dear friend Kenny D. Ken Davis returns. And it's the Ben Joravsky show debut of Benny J. Show superfan, John Gleason Teskey. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're not calling this Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Oh, we could call it Once Upon.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No, been out for not even 24 hours.
And I was there in line, ready to see it with all the other Tarantino geeks. Yay! My wife, my lovely wife, was with me as well. God bless her. She puts up with me. Anyway, we're not calling this Once Upon a Time in Hollywood Friday. We're calling this Hurt Feelings Friday, D. And
I'm sorry. What did I do?
No, you never do anything. It's not you that hurt anybody. Be feelings. Whoa. Anyway, I will not sing. So I woke up to discover that the Fraternal Order of Police is still really mad at Mayor Lori Lightfoot. All right, now we talked about this yesterday, D. This all emanates from Wednesday's.
Speaking of, you're over that movie yesterday now.
Well, it's true. It's momentarily caught.
You're so over yesterday.
I love yesterday, but it's preempted, you're correct, by Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love that movie. But anyway, D, I'm supposed to focus, okay? You told me, don't talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, all right? So focus, Ben, focus. Now, what was I focused on? Oh, yes. Mayor Lori Lightfoot's ongoing spat with the Fraternal Order Police goes back to Wednesday. It was at a Wednesday City Council meeting. We have this public address system where everybody gets to address the mayor. It's the public portion of the show where the citizens of the city of Chicago, have your opportunity to stand before Her Highness and say things that are on your mind, and Her Highness is supposed to listen to you, all right? And it's a great thing we have in the city of Chicago. It's democracy with a small d, and it only took a lawsuit to get it, but whatever, we got it, all right? Anyway, so Patrick Murray, who is an official with the local Fraternal Order Police, rose to speak, and at that point, Lori Lightfoot muttered, quote, "This FOP clown." Only she muttered it into an open mic.
Whoops.
So we should not have heard it. What would Dikembe Mutombo say? With the fingers going like this.
Hang tight, non-sports fans.
Dikembe Mutombo, I love him. Anyway, so the Fraternal Order Police was really upset, as well they should. It was very insulting for her to say that. Patrick Murray is a citizen in the city of Chicago. He has every single right to address Her Highness, and she should be respectful, in my humble opinion, to people who come before her, and she should not mutter things like, "that clown." She should listen to what he has to say and take notes if she wants to, not take notes, whatever, but no need to insult him.
Or wait till you get home, at least.
Yeah, what you say behind closed doors is your own business. There's a song about that, D. What goes on behind closed doors? Do you know that song?
No, it sounds dirty.
It's from the 70s. You wouldn't know it. Anyway, moving on. So the reporters all ran up to Lori Lightfoot afterwards to ask her, are you going to apologize? And what did she say? Let me see. What did she say? She said, I am sorry that I said that out loud.
That's correct.
Forgot Mueller. Oh, God. Can't hear a word you're saying. What?
What page is that?
Mueller. Anyway, Lori Lightfoot, that's not a very good apology. We talked about this yesterday. That is 101 of not a good apology, because you're not saying that you're sorry that you said it. You're not saying that you're sorry that you insulted a citizen of the city of Chicago who has every right to stand before you at the public portion of the city council meeting. No, you're saying you're sorry you got caught saying the nasty thing about him. So it's not a good apology. All right? Now, having said that, I think the National Fraternal Order of Police is taking it a little too far. Yes, they weighed in. Chuck Canterbury is his name. He's the president of the National Fraternal Order of Police, and he's insulted, D. He's hurt, okay? He wants a better apology. And what did he say? He said, here we go, and gave an interview with Fran Spielman in the Sun-Times. My beloved bright one, home delivered every day. You know, D, I'm going to have to start reading the news the way you do, not just home. I've just come to that decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm always behind.
Yeah.
It's like 24 hours because I actually read a newspaper.
Come on board to 2019.
Hey, got a little.
We'll have a blast.
2019.
I'll Venmo you afterwards.
Yeah, by the way, who was the first person to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Oh, the older guy.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, where was I? Oh, this is what Canterbury said. That's his name. Chuck Canterbury says they're professionals. They understand that she's the mayor, but they also believe that she needs to listen more and talk less. She's surely not endearing herself to the people you are paid to protect the city of Chicago. If you continuously degrade people, it affects morale greatly. That last portion is very important. I will read that again. If you continuously degrade people, it affects morale greatly. Hear, hear. I agree with that. So, Fraternal Order of Police, Mr. Canterbury, Chuck Canterbury, if you're so concerned about the degrading law enforcement officers, if you're so concerned about the morale caused when public officials, prominent public officials, degrade law enforcement officers and people who try to enforce the law, where have you been for the last 2 years as President Donnie John Trump has one day to the next ripped law enforcement officers who dare to investigate him for his crimes, his alleged crimes and misdemeanors? Let me go through it. Okay, here we go. Donald John Trump on James Comey, the former head of the FBI. Quote, an untruthful slimeball. Mr. Canterbury, where were you when Donald John Trump called James Comey an untruthful slimeball? How about this? Trump on Robert Mueller's investigators, the greatest witch hunt in U.S. history. Where were you calling out Trump on that? That had to hurt the morale of law enforcement officers. How about this one about the Mueller investigators? Democratic never-Trumpers. Oh, he's saying they have no credibility because they may have supported a Democrat because someone they knew gave money to a Democrat? You're saying they have no credibility? Mr. Canterbury, where are you for that one, huh? How about when he just continually rips Peter Strzok, that FBI agent, talks about an FBI agent lover, downgrades everything he ever just did, just basically calls him a slimeball? Where are you for that one? Not one word on that one, but you're really upset about Lori Lightfoot. Isn't that interesting how you pick and choose which public officials you want to apologize for the mean, nasty things they say about law enforcement officials? Now, D, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Ben, you know what you're doing?
How'd you know that? That's what I was about to say.
You're about to say, what about ism? Yes. Yeah. You're about to say, what about ism? That's what you're about to say.
Yeah.
Exactly. Matumbo.
How'd you know?
Leah's in the room. Anyway,
Leah.
we can do this all day. I like doing that.
Yeah,
actually.
we'd lose listeners.
Anyway, whataboutisms is what Democrats accuse Republicans of doing. And they do it all the time, Republicans, by the way. So, for instance, if Donald John Trump were to say he grabs women by their private parts, only he says the word, which we don't say on the show, D, right?
Thank you.
And when he says that, Republicans always say, what about Bill Clinton? Right, D? When Donald John Trump is caught making payments to strippers so he can hush up his affairs with them, Republicans say, what about Bill Clinton? right? Huh? When John Trump is seen hanging around with that sleazoid Epstein, right? Calling him a great guy. What do Republicans say? What about Bill Clinton? So I know what you're saying to me. You're saying you're doing whataboutisms just the way we do whataboutism. Well, if it's good for you, if it's good for you, it's good for us, right? Huh, Republicans? You're the only one to get to play that game. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to cut a deal. I'm going to cut a deal with the head of the Fraternal Order Police, all right? I will allow you to say whatever you want. I will cheer you on as you criticize Lori Lightfoot for saying mean, nasty things about law enforcement officials in the city of Chicago, when just once, you say something critical about Donald John Trump when he rips the FBI and their investigations. We got a great show today, everybody. Yes, indeed. Romana Hussein will be here. It's the Romana Rundown every Friday. I'm probably going to ask her about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood Day. You know, she hasn't seen
Shocking.
it. Saw that movie last night when it opened. Yes, indeed.
People are listening. They know.
Young Kenneth Davis will be here. I love Ken Davis, and he will be doing his imitation of me imitating him. How about that? All right? And then you'll do your imitation of me imitating him and him.
Get the bong, listeners. It's going to get crazy.
Ken Davis has a lot to say about everything, including Trump and local politics, so I can't wait to bring him on. And, of course, the man they call JGT, John Gleason Teskey, will be making his Ben Joravsky Show debut. We'll be asking about Trump, and more Trump. So plenty of political talk ahead. But before we do any of that, the doctor with the news.
Hey, did you sort of invite that FOP guy to be on the show?
Yeah, he's more than welcome to come on the show. Criticize Donald John Trump. Go ahead. Knock yourself out.
All right, FOP man, come on, Cadbury, like the eggs? Come on the show. Do it. It's the middle of the final day of the week. Let's unpack the national... Oh, by the way, I'm Dennis, not a doctor. Let's unpack the national news happening one more time before the weekend. Actually, before we do that, we have to talk about this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, an exclusive brand new interview waiting for you. So when you get some downtime this weekend, make sure to download this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Here's the lineup. Oh, and unlike last weekend, I'll post the right interview, okay? Turns out Toy Hutchinson and Terry Cosgrove, wrong interview. That's now posted, by the way, and you can check that out.
Wrong.
Oops.
Loser.
That's just me and Ben doing this here. Sometimes that'll happen, but we'll make sure that these interviews are on there.
That's a great interview, by the way. Toy Hutchinson was on fire.
Yeah, she put a button on Confederate Railroad.
Yes,
I think
did,
pretty well.
Yeah.
All right, Saturday, July 27th. He's a Chicago radio legend and a dear friend of Ben Joravsky and the Ben Joravsky Show. It's the new Ben Joravsky Show debut of the real deal, Richard Steele.
Absolutely great interview. A blast talking to Richard Steele. We went into a whole thing about getting fired, which was actually pretty funny. Richard Steele told some pretty funny stories about getting fired. And then the national politics, local politics, the real deal, Richard Steele. You're going to love hearing that, folks. If you're thinking, wait a minute, Richard Steele, I know that name. Yeah, the guy from WBEZ. Yeah, that Richard Steele. But before that, a lot of WBEZ listeners do not know this. I'm going to help you out. The guy was a freaking legend on the radio for, I don't know, 30 years as a DJ. So Richard Steele knows the game, ladies and gentlemen.
That'll be available tomorrow, Saturday at 6 a.m., Richard Steele. On to Sunday's interview. Now this feller's coming in after today's program. I've never met the guy. His name's Mark Baser. Ben, tell us what to expect with Mark Baser.
Mark Baser is the host of a comic talk show at the Hideout. Once a month on Fridays. Very funny guy, very shrewd observer of the political scene. He has a show on WTTW. So I'm looking forward to having Mark sit in that chair right there. We'll talk about the issues of the day.
All right, that's going to be available Sunday at 6 a.m. and on Monday available at 5 a.m. because I know a lot of you people got to get to work early at ungodly hours. It's the newly elected 25th Ward Alderman, the one, the only, Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez.
Yes, with his wife, Laureen Targos. It's a very interesting interview. We did it yesterday. Alderman Sigcho Lopez talking about beating Danny Solis's machine on the 25th Ward and just all the bizarre counterattacks that the Solis machine ran at him. Danny Solis, of course, being the former alderman of the 25th Ward, who stepped down claiming he wanted to spend more time with his family, D. Remember that? Danny Solis said, I might want to spend more time with my grandchildren. And he said that, or maybe his grandchild. Anyway, then it turned out he was wearing a wire for the feds and scooping up dirt on Ed Burke. He left that part out of the equation. Anyway, Byron and Lorene Targos, really interesting interview. I have to say, when talking about their a happily married couple and what the tactics of their opponents was to say they weren't really married. This is so Chicago, folks. Follow me on this one. That ward, the 25th ward, is on the near southwest side of Chicago and includes Hispanic areas and includes Chinatown. And Lorene Targos is a Chinese American, and so it was advantageous for Byron Sixer Lopez to be married to her to get Chinatown votes. Okay, you following this? This is classic Chicago politics. So what did Danny Solis's machine do to try to undercut that? They spread rumors that they weren't really married. Great city of Chicago. That's democracy in the city of Chicago. Anyway, politics in the city of Chicago. That will be on Monday, right, young man?
That'll be on Monday. They held hands the entire time during the interview, all right? I don't know what you're talking about, Solis.
Yeah. No, you're talking about Kitty Kurth and Kevin Lampy. That was the political love couple that was on about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, break it up, guys. Come on, we're doing an interview. It's this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews, downloadable only at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download podcasts. All right, let's do the national news. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He loves Nancy Pelosi, guys. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi
It's really good.
held her weekly press conference this morning. She began by lauding the budget deal passed by the House yesterday, and she then burned the Senate Republicans for refusing to take up bills aimed at strengthening U.S. election security.
Oh my God, what a joke that is.
She then recapped her recent meeting with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a.k.a. AOC. Pelosi downplayed any differences between her and the progressive congresswoman. When asked whether the meeting helped the pair bury the hatchet, Speaker Pelosi said, quote, "I would never even say that it was a hatchet."
Yeah, the old hatchet line. Listen, Nancy Pelosi. Yes, it's true. I have a Nancy Pelosi lunchbox and a Nancy Pelosi thermos. Okay?
That's weird, guys.
But you really blew it, in my humble opinion, with that interview with Maureen Dowd. It was unnecessary, Maureen Dowd, the columnist for the New York Times, to take a shot at AOC and the rest of the squad. That opened things up for Donnie John Trump to then rip on them. And now we've been dealing this for 2 weeks. So a little more restraint, okay? A little more restraint. I know you're the person in charge, and it's difficult sometimes for powerful people to show restraint. In fact, we were just discussing this in regards to Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot, anytime you want to legitimately apologize to Patrick Murray for calling him a clown, you should do so, because that's part of the responsibility of being the person in charge. Right. Anyway, so I'm glad that Nancy Pelosi is learned from her mistakes and is not going to make attacks on AOC.
Way to go, Ben Pelosi. I mean, Ben Joravsky. Then came the president impeachment portion of Pelosi's press conference. Try saying that 5 times fast. Our let's impeach the bastard Democrats have recently called out the speaker for trying to run out the clock on Donald Trump impeachment proceedings. By the way, since yesterday, 6 more House Democrats have announced their support of launching impeachment proceedings against Trump since Robert Mueller testified. Nancy Pelosi denied that she was trying to, quote, run out the clock. She went on to say, "Let's get sophisticated about this, okay? We will proceed when we have what we need to proceed, not one day sooner."
Whoa, man, that's some trippy stuff. We will proceed when we what?
We will proceed when we have what we need to proceed.
Okay.
Not one day sooner.
All right, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, she is drawing out the clock.
The House Speaker emphasized that she was committed to moving forward with investigating Trump in a, quote, determined, positive way.
Positive?
Whatever that means.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Their advocacy for impeachment only gives me leverage, Pelosi said, of the members of her caucus advocating for launching an inquiry. She argued that Robert Mueller's testimony had, quote, confirmed in the public mind that the president has obstructed justice. But given that Mueller was unable to investigate certain elements of the case, including Trump's finances, the speaker said she was committed to continuing their investigations of the president, and that and that is what we are doing in the courts. I hate this story. She added she would reconsider proceeding with an impeachment inquiry, quote, when we have the best possible case. And no, it will not end. We have more to talk about with this impeachment story. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler, who yesterday was for sure pro let's impeach the bastard, he had his own press conference today. And Ben, we may have a flip-flopper on our hands. Nadler has now declined to publicly endorse impeaching the president. But Nadler and a group of colleagues did, however, announce their panel would file an application today seeking the grand jury material underlying special counsel Robert Mueller's report.
All right, let's just deal with this one.
Lord, that was
I
a
know
lot.
that was a tough one, man. But here's the deal. It's hard to say all this because they're flipping and they're flopping and they're spinning. And here's the reality, folks. The Democrats are trying to pretend as though we're above politics. We just want to get at the truth.
Oh, that was Marianne Williamson. That's good.
Yeah. Was that my Marianne Williamson
I think
imitation?
so.
I have no idea who that was.
Sounded like it.
But that's what Democrats always like. They want to pretend as though it's a legitimate game. Meanwhile, the other side is down in the mud, folks. They're fighting with brass knuckles, okay? It's like, once again, the Fraternal Order Police bashed the heck out of Lori Lightfoot because she made a derogatory comment about Patrick Murray, a local cop. Not one word about Donald John Trump. All right. So one side is trying to play by rules, the Democrats, and the other side openly acknowledges that the rules don't exist, and they say whatever they want to say. And I got to tell you this, Nancy Pelosi, if it was reverse, and it was a Democratic president who had met with Putin, whose Confederates had met with Putin, who had benefited from stealing documents from Democratic computers, who, by the way, front page story in the New York Times, the Senate, the Republicans in the U.S. Senate are withholding money to have protections of our election system, the computers that count the votes. Why? Because they probably figure that if the Russians hack, they're going to be hacking on behalf of Donald Trump. So they're not even going to put in those protections. If it were Democrats that were behaving that way, Republicans would already have launched an impeachment proceeding. But no, Nadler and Pelosi, we're fair. We play by the rules. The rules don't exist, ladies and gentlemen.
You think they're trying to beat out the clock?
Oh, yeah. Come on. Wait, hold on, D.
Uh-oh. Well, he's drinking something.
The Nancy Pelosi Kool-Aid.
That's what
Don't you say anything bad about Nancy Pelosi.
He's got a lot of different flavored Kool-Aid
Wait, hold on.
over there.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Did I tell you how much I love Kamala Harris?
Okay, we're moving on. We have a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate update to discuss. Yeah, Bernie Sanders may have lost 1 million combs this election season. And yeah, Mayor Pete may have ridden in 1 million private jets. But Massachusetts Senator and 2020 presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren announced today that her presidential campaign has received its 1 millionth donation.
Wow, that's a lot of donations.
And no, listeners, that 1 millionth donation was not from Ben Joravsky. He's really into Joe Biden for some reason these days. Still not sure why.
Grandpa Joe.
Oh, Lord. The Massachusetts Democrat posted an online video, and in this video, we've learned that Caitlin was the person whose contribution pushed the campaign across the threshold. Oh. Who's Caitlin?
Yeah.
Well, you're about to find out. Here's the video of Warren calling Caitlin on the phone. Yeah. Here it is.
Okay, so I'm calling Caitlin. She has made the 1 millionth contribution. Is that pretty amazing?
Hello.
Hello, Caitlin?
Yes.
It's Elizabeth Warren.
Hey, how are you? Elizabeth Warren?
Well, I am particularly good because I'm calling you because you made the 1 millionth contribution to my campaign.
Are you serious?
I am absolutely serious.
Wow.
And I'm calling to say a double woohoo thank you. So I just got to ask you real quick.
Woohoo.
So what's your big issue? What's the one that pulls you in?
Ah, man. So I'm an ESL teacher. I teach English as a second language. So right now, immigration is, constantly on my mind. And then I also have siblings and family members that, are affected by the healthcare system. They've got a lot of health things going on. So those are my 2 big things that I really care about. And obviously education, has to come in there. So it's hard to say one, but
that's okay.
Those are the things that are close to me.
That's okay. I know just how you feel, because all those things are close to my heart. And these are all the things we got to work on. And, they fundamentally come back to this real question about who we're going to make this government work for. And all of these fit together. We're going to make this government work, not just for the wealthy and the well-connected. We're going to make this government work for all of us.
Yeah, that was some conversation. I sensed a little, just a tad bit of impatience on the part of Elizabeth Warren. Like the lady, she called some woman out of the blue. Well, maybe they did set it up beforehand and said, "What's most on your mind?" And the person's like, I gotta think about. You just see the brain going. I gotta think about this. And she's like, Elizabeth Warren's like, "Yep, And like, because I'm an ESL teacher. Oh, yeah. I'm moving along. All right.
Oh, you were definitely not the millionth person to do the donation.
Anyway, that kind of reminded me in the old days, back in the old days when I listened to Radio D, in my room. Yeah. They would have like the 10th caller gets 2 tickets to see Bob Seger live at the United Center. and they would go, Dr. D, this is Ben from W whatever ever. You are the 10th caller to see Seger. And you would go, all right, wow, woo.
Well, she got a call from Elizabeth Warren, man. She was pumped.
Yeah, man. It kind of reminded me when it's just like getting Bob Seger tickets, all right?
Now, of course, we'll keep you posted on these stories as today's program rolls along, but we're moving on. And coming up after this short little break, we're going to find out what's going on locally. We're going to find out what else is news. Hey, have you ever read the Chicago Reader? Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
For the top 1% than the bottom 92%. 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed, we are live at our beautiful studio in the bright one. What you got for me, D?
All right, we're about to find out what's going on locally. It's time for What Else is News. Lori Lightfoot was on Chicago Tonight Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
And we have the audio. And for those wondering, yes, the gentleman hosting the Chicago Tonight interview is Paris Schutz. And judging by the look on his face every time he did one, a.k.a. Mayor Rahm's least favorite person to do an interview with, he's back. Yes.
Oh, I love those Paris Schutz Rahm Emanuel interviews. Are hilarious.
More on that in a moment. But first, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. We've been learning a few things about you since winning the election.
Yeah.
Number one. Yeah,
there you go.
You love luncheons.
Yeah, she does. And who can blame her? I love luncheons.
Luncheons are great. Number two. You hate Alderman Ed Burke.
Well, there's a good reason for that.
And number 3. We've learned this one actually this week. You're kind of so-so on apologizing.
Oh, my God. You are terrible at apologizing. Just say you're sorry.
The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Woman Spielman. The article is titled, National FOP President Demands That Lightfoot Apologize for Open Mic Put-Down. The National President of the Fraternal Order of Police demanded Thursday that Mayor Lori Lightfoot apologize to rank-and-file Chicago police officers and conduct herself with more dignity and less immaturity after Lightfoot was captured on an open mic calling their second vice president, quote, this FOP clown. Ben, you mentioned it earlier. Anything else you'd like to add before we move on to other pressing issues?
No, we've been talking about this all day. I do believe that Lori Lightfoot owes Patrick Murray a decent apology. She should offer it. And I am waiting right now. I'm still waiting for Chuck Canterbury to insist that Donald Trump apologize for all the mean, nasty things he said about law enforcement officials. Hold on, let me see. Yep, there he is. He's under the table. He's not coming out yet. So I guess we're going to have to wait for Canterbury to call on Donald Trump to apologize before Lori Lightfoot will apologize to Patrick Murray.
So there you are. Now we're moving on, all right? Lori Lightfoot was a guest on WTTW Chicago Tonight on Thursday. Once again, it was hosted by Paris Schutz.
It's been a busy first 2 months for Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Yesterday, she scored a pair of legislative victories on some of her campaign promises, namely boosting workplace protections for Chicago employees and beefing up city council ethics rules. But the stubborn problems of crime and fiscal uncertainty remain front and center.
We got to get this dude on the show sometime soon.
No, we had him booked, and then something came. Remember Ed Burke?
Oh, yeah.
He was ready to come in, and then he was like,
"Damn it, Burke! You ruin it for everybody."
I know, Ben. I'm really busy. I just can't make it. No, sorry.
All right, now this interview
That's
is
my Paris Shuts.
Yeah, you need to work on it. This bad boy's about 24 minutes long. All right, we're gonna see how much of this we can play during today's show.
Oh, yeah.
We got Kenny D. Ken Davis coming on later. We'll play some of the interview for him as well. But let's begin. Paris Shuts started his interview with Lori Lightfoot with that guy who ruined our interview with him. The 14th Ward Alderman Ed Burke. Let's hear what Lori had to say.
On the ethics bill that passed yesterday, no more conflict of interest jobs for aldermen, meaning Ed Burke has to choose between being a property tax appeal lawyer or having a stake in that company or being an alderman. Do you anticipate he'll comply with these new rules?
Well, I have no idea whether he'll comply or not willingly, but the rules are very clear, and we expect to enforce them aggressively. We can't continue to have a system where individuals who are elected officials or appointed officials put their own monetary interest ahead of the public's. And that's what that particular part of the ethics reforms is intended to get at.
Does this mean he'll have to divest from any economic relationship with that law firm if he wants to stay an alderman?
Certainly, in the first instance, he can't himself represent any interests who are contrary. And we'll work with the ethics board to figure out the specific mechanics, but it is designed to go after people like Ed Burke and others who decide that they are going to put their own pecuniary interest ahead of the interests of the taxpayers. That's got to end.
All right, I love it when she uses big words like pecuniary. That's a good word.
Yeah, lost me.
And she's absolutely correct. It's about time Ed Burke chose between being a property tax lawyer and an alderman. So give up one. I say give up being an alderman. Go back to the property tax business. That's just my opinion, young man.
So give him a grade here. How's Paris Shuts doing so far?
Doing really well. You're in Paris. Yeah, but I missed the Paris Rom interviews where like Rom would insult Paris. Paris would ask a question. Rom would duck and dodge. You notice Lori has this habit of directly answering a question. Like he asked her, will Ed Burke give up his position? She goes, I have absolutely no idea. So she answered his question. Rom would start, orating about, I don't know, Dikembe Mutombo or something.
All right, now we're going to play one more clip here. Remember, we're going to be playing this video throughout today's show. Do not worry. A lot more to go. But this is the portion of the interview where we learned that maybe Ben Joravsky's been thinking about that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood movie a little too much these days. We learned about an advisor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, it's embarrassing. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, here's Lori on advisor and Wilmette.
Is it ethical that one of your advisors, a volunteer advisor, has skirted city residency rules and she lives in Wilmette?
She has not skirted city residency rules, so I want to make that very clear. She's hired by an entity that doesn't have the same residency rules, and she's providing advice and leadership to us. She's a person that I've known for a very long time, incredibly competent, helped on the Police Accountability Task Force, was very instrumental in our transition efforts, and is doing a lot to help us stand up this brand new administration.
This advisor, her name is Lisa Schneider-Fabes, and the entity you're talking about is World Business Chicago,
right.
which is this public-private agency. Mm-hmm. It's been free of any FOIA laws. The public can't FOIA this agency to find out what people make or what it really does. Do you want to change that?
Yeah, we're working on looking at that, looking at Navy Pier. When taxpayer dollars are at stake, there's got to be more transparency. So stand by, but we're looking at making sure that those entities are much more transparent than they have been.
So would you support them being accountable to FOIA laws, to public records laws?
As I said, we're looking at making sure that they are more transparent than they have been.
It's trying to pin her down. That's about all I'm going to say, Paris, so stop asking me that question. These reporters know that it's like you ask a question once, they kind of duck and dodge and avoid it, then you ask it again, and they duck and dodge again. Or in her case, she pointedly said, I'm not going to answer it. Then you move on. It's like, and you could just say, well, all right, I tried. Now we're just going to move on. But anyway, so yes, I have to make a confession. Yeah, when Dennis told me that he was going to do this news bit, I was like, what? Who? Folks, Romana Hussein is in the studio. I'm going to make a confession. Romana, with you in the studio. I did not know about that story. I did not know about it. And here's the thing about people in the media. I've learned this. They feel compelled to know absolutely everything about everything. A knee-jerk reaction of pretty much anybody in the game of reporting is, oh, I knew that. You ask them about anything, I knew that. I knew that. I knew that. I knew that. Yeah. I knew that because the story could have just come out 2 seconds ago. I knew that. In fact, I had an editor who will remain anonymous. So I would have conversations with this anonymous editor. Don't ask me who it is, D, okay? It's a long ago editor. And while I would be having conversations talking about something that happened long before this editor was born, so there was no reason this editor would absolutely know. I could hear tick, 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 tick in the background, that editor Googling, oh yeah, I knew that. Anyway, I did not know, Romana, I did not know that the Tribune wrote an article about Lisa Schneider-Fabes is her name, an advisor to Lori Lightfoot, and she lived in Wilmette, all right? And so Parachutes apparently reads the Tribune a little better than I do. He knew about it. Did you know about it? Make a confession.
I feel like I read the headline, but I didn't read the story. I admit, I'm one of those people, I'm one of those reporters who admits I don't know everything. And I don't know everything that happened. I remember when I first started off as a reporter at City News, I was sitting in City Hall and everybody's talking about all this stuff. And I only knew a little about what happened. They'd talk about the council wars. I'm like, oh, really? That happened? And so it was very eye-opening. I didn't know a lot about the city. I mean, even though I was born in the city and grew up right outside of it.
Yeah, well, that would have been ancient history, but I'm just saying.
No. Even now, I mean, there's so many articles out there. Are you really going to read everything?
Yeah.
And as an editor, I don't like reading the papers anymore as much as I used to.
What? Huge confession.
I read the art sections all the time, but because I do the hard news all the time, I don't want to read the paper. Yeah.
All right, now I have to tell you this. When I've noticed this about the Tribune, whenever they make a reference to Wilmette, they feel compelled to identify Wilmette in some way as a wealthy suburb.
Yeah.
Because I guess I don't know why they do that, but I think that's their if the Tribune has a base, my guess it would be Wilmette. So why they feel compelled to identify Wilmette? You know what I'm saying? So they always so when I found the article, I dutifully went back and read the Tribune article where they identified Lisa Schneider-Fabes as living in Wilmette. They felt compelled to call it Tony North Shore suburb. Sometimes they call it Leafy.
If you just say North Shore, that's pretty much wealthy, isn't it? Although I have to say my brother lives in Wilmette, as I mentioned before, and there is people are making fun of me. I'm like, no, it's a little more modest. There are modest homes in Wilmette.
There's the other side of the tracks.
Yeah, I know.
Wilmette.
So I always joke around that my brother lives in the rougher
part
side.
Of Wilmette?
He had a starter house. He actually moved to a nicer place, but there are somewhat affordable homes in Wilmette.
Time out. There's nothing wrong with living in Wilmette, okay?
I like Wilmette.
Shout out to our Wilmette listeners.
Yeah, well, I like the North Shore. So
yeah, I love the North Shore. I'm from Evanston. And but it's funny because this is a whole thing about North Shore types. I was speaking to a person who grew up on the North Shore. His name will remain anonymous. And he was telling me, oh, God, I can't stand it. It's so North Shore. I go, dude, you grew up on the North Shore. You live in Evanston right now. What's the matter with clearly you have no problem with the North Shore.
Oh, I've been called North Shore before, but I admit it. I have some North Shore tendencies. I'm not going to well, that's the thing I find appalling. And I've mentioned this to my husband, Mick, who's not from Chicago.
Yes.
I said, all these people who aren't from Chicago, suddenly they're the Chicago police, and they're always making claims about, oh, that's not really the city, that's the suburbs. And I'm like, first of all, you grew up in some podunk town in the Midwest, and I'm like, and then they keep going on and on and on about it. I get lectures from people who have been in Chicago for a few years, and they're telling me about Chicago, and it's like, okay. Yeah. I know I don't look like I'm from here, but thanks.
She's from here, all right, ladies and gentlemen? I could go on and on about the whole Chicago identity. But let's move on to the obsessive news of the day.
But a lot of people who grew up in the North Shore pretend they didn't grow up in the North Shore.
All right, we have Romana Hussein. We're going to do the Romana Rundown. We have a whole list of things we're going to talk about when we return.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. See the city from a whole new angle on a Chicago Architecture Center tour. With more than 85 tours to choose from, there are endless stories to discover. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on a tour. Oh my, what magnificent architecture. get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident. All right, listen up. Our friends and co-hosts at the Chicago Sun-Times are offering you, yes, you, the listener, an exclusive deal on unlimited digital access to all of the stories that you love. Unlock every feature, video, and podcast, just like the Ben Joravsky Show, by signing up now for a digital subscription. For a limited time only, you, the listener, can lock in our lowest rate yet, only $29.99 for a full year of all the news that you need to know. Stay up to date on breaking stories, get the deep dives and investigations from Sun-Times reporters, cheer for the big games with the best sports team in the city, and go deep inside City Hall with best in-class political reporting. $29.99 for a full year of unlimited access. I looked online. I searched everywhere. You can't do better than that. Take advantage of this exclusive deal now at suntimes.com/Ben. Now back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
All right, very good. Romana Hussein in the studio with me, Chicago Sun-Times editor. Every Friday she appears on the show. It's the Romana Rundown. Let's start with Lori and the Fraternal Order of Police. We've been talking about this all day. We talked about it yesterday in my beloved Bright One. There's an article. The president of the National Fraternal Order of Police has weighed in. He wants Lori Lightfoot to apologize for offending law enforcement officers throughout Chicago because she was heard on mic calling one FOP officer a clown.
She actually responded again to his comments today, and she said that she's done talking about it. And she reiterated that she was just sorry that her mic was on, and she just said that there's bigger fish to fry in the city, which I think is definitely interesting. It's like she's not apologizing.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, when Fran first did the story, Fran Spielman, who covers City Hall for the Sun-Times, I think she kind of asked her like many ways, like, are you going to apologize? And she kept saying, I'm just sorry that the mic wasn't on. I just find it's interesting. I can't say whether or not she should apologize as a reporter, but I just think it's fascinating that she's not apologizing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Ben can. What do you say, Ben?
Yeah, go ahead.
But I know, I think it's definitely interesting. And, I don't think this story is gonna die right away, just because of all, the FOP. Definitely, there's a kind of a shaky relationship between her and the FOP leadership. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just hearing about it. I know one thing I can say is her calling this attorney. It was an attorney for the FOP, correct?
Well, no, his
name was
Patrick Murray.
Patrick
I don't think
Murray,
he was an attorney. I think he was.
He was there
rank
to
and file Chicago police officer.
Oh, okay, and he was there to defend the 4 officers that were recommended to be or were fired actually by the police board. These are officers who covered up for. This is for Officer Jason Van Dyke, who, as we all know, was convicted in the murder of Laquan McDonald. So when her mic goes off, she goes, "Oh, not this clown again." She turns to the corporation counsel. I told someone, this is just my personal opinion. I said it could have been worse. There could have been comments or worse, just from what we hear politicians call other people in private when they don't know the mic is on.
Yeah.
There's been presidents who've used racial slurs, called other, heads of states from other countries certain words. They're a lot more colorful. So that's what my opinion is. I'm not going to be lecturing anybody on either side, but I do think it could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been. I remember Jesse Jackson got caught saying something really embarrassing. It's in my head, but I'm not going to say it on the air.
Oh, I know.
He's been caught a few times with open mics, and
was it the H word?
Well, that took place in the 80s. That's a whole other story.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about more recently about Barack Obama.
Oh, yeah. No, that happened when he was on CNN, but I think he knew the mic was still on.
Well, that's part of me thinks that Lori Lightfoot knew the mic was on when she said that. Just saying, I'm throwing a kick into her head. But I believe kind of like this whole thing. Isn't that coincidence that she said that in front of the microphone? I don't know. Maybe I'm being.
Anyway, sorry, I cut you off. You're talking.
No, my point is, I've said this all along. I think she should apologize. I think she should make it clear she's apologized. She's the mayor of the city of Chicago. She's not a candidate anymore, and she's supposed to behave with a certain dignity. And you should be, open-minded about the way you treat the various people who come before you. This gentleman was speaking at the public comment session of the city council. So I'm saying we need more civility from our mayor. That said, and this is the point I've been making today, I'm waiting for the National Fraternal Order Police to condemn Donald John Trump for all the uncivil things he says about law enforcement officers like the FBI and James Comey and Mueller, who've been investigating him. He's been trashing them for over 2 years. I've not heard peep from the National Fraternal Order Police on this issue. So they pick and choose which public
I agree.
officials.
I'm surprised that you think that Lori should apologize.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't think you would think that. But
no, I believe in
think
civility and part of our elected officials.
I think you make a good point. It's like some groups want certain people to apologize, and Donald Trump has said worse.
Every day.
So
he says
I know.
worse.
I was going to say it's not just law enforcement; it's everybody.
Yeah. Except
people that he likes or is friends with. I mean, somebody just pointed out how he's aggressively pursuing the case of that one rapper who's friends with Kanye.
A$AP Rocky.
Yeah.
Dennis loves A$AP Rocky.
And so anyway, someone pointed out, like, why wasn't he that upset when the reporter in Saudi Arabia was murdered? Like, people are just like, well, you can't pick and choose. Like, you're angry about this because it's affiliated with your friends.
Yeah.
Or people you like, but everybody else is fair game for him.
Well, that story broke. We were in doing a show. Who was on the air? Oh, Sergio was on, right? And DeFrance. But we had Sergio and DeFrance, who are people of the younger persuasion, way younger than me,
and probably me.
They're both younger than you. And that story broke. I had never heard of A$AP Rocky. Big confession time there. But they were on that story. It was really good that I had like a young person in the studio that time. They knew all about it. And then I started reading about it. And clearly that was, oh my God, Dee, I would love to play that. That was Donald Trump's attempt after 1 week of insulting Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley and Omar and Tlaib, after 1 week to win back the black vote, because Kanye West came. I'm like, what a strategy!
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, he wants to appeal to the African American crowd by doing this,
and he was. He was very open about it. He started off by saying, my African American friends have been. I'm like, what African American friends do you have?
It's like people who always go, oh, well, my black friends, and I have black friends. That's a common opening for a lot of people.
A lot of people. And my
bigoted.
Jewish friends, and it's just they should be your friends. All right, so let's move on to this editorial that was in my beloved Bright One today, and I thought it was a really good. I don't know who wrote it. Usually I give credit to Tom McNamee. I just assume that Tom McNamee writes these editorials, but there's a whole group of people.
Well, there's Tom McNamee, and there's Tom Frisbee, and then there's Lorraine Forte, and then Marlon Garcia.
All right, let's give Lorraine Forte credit for this.
Yeah, and Marlon Garcia is part-timer now. I mean, she kind of was before too, but she's a little she's just not in the office all the time. But
she wrote a great column. Marlon
on Jeannie
Garcia.
Ives.
Yeah, Jeannie Ives, which is a great column. Let's talk about that for just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Did you edit this one?
No, I don't edit editorials. The editorial desk, from what I understand, Chris Fusco, our editor-in-chief, and he does. He edits. I think he looks them over, but I think a lot. I was on the editorial board for a short stint, and we used to edit each other.
I see.
So I am sure that's a lot of that going on.
Well, Marlon Garcia gets a columnist for the Sun-Times. It's called "Right Wing Agenda Will Doom Ives Bid for Congress." And it's all about Jeannie Ives, who, of course, ran for against
governor.
Rauner, for governor, running to the right of Rauner, if such a thing is possible, is now running in the Republican primaries for the right to challenge Sean Casten in the 6th Congressional District. And what's interesting, and what Marlon Garcia points out, is that Republican Jeannie Ives has an extreme right-wing platform background, and yet she thinks that's the mainstream.
Yeah, and Marlon's is pointing out that these suburbs are actually, if they're Republican, they're more to the center, and they're changing drastically. As well.
So
but she has to change her. She's saying that if she wants to even have a chance, she has to change her viewpoint, and she mentions the commercial that deeply disturbed both editorial boards the Chicago Tribune and the Sun-Times.
Yes, and this gets in what I call the false equivalency between extremists on the right and people moderates. So, for instance, Republican Jeannie Ives wants you to think that Sean Casten, who is a moderate Democrat, is an extremist because he believes in a woman's right to choose, let's say, as opposed to being a moderate.
Yeah.
Most people in this country believe in a woman's right to choose. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she wants you to believe
that's extreme.
Extreme.
Yeah.
Like, her opinions are not extreme.
Yeah. And then that commercial, I mean, I remember the commercial. I didn't even see the commercial. I only saw it I never saw it airing while I was watching TV. Maybe I wasn't watching too much TV when it aired, but I just remember seeing the commercial and there's, if you're not offended by one of the things that she showed, you're offended by the next one. So,
go back.
Some people were.
How people, when you say commercial, I didn't click on, but
the commercial she had where there was, I think there was a person that was supposed to be a transgendered person. There was a quote unquote undocumented or probably called illegal immigrants. And they're just saying because of, Bruce Rauner, I think, wasn't it because of Bruce Rauner, I can use the women's bathroom. And it was it looked like a man dressed like a woman. It was.
I remember this commercial. It's
and then
back,
I forgot what she said about the undocumented immigrants, but there was something about because of Governor Rauner, I can stay here. And I don't know, I could be misquoting and, commit crimes or something that, that was falling in the line with what Trump says about certain groups of people. And so there was I think there was 3 or 4 examples of this. And I'm sure it didn't go, from what I remember, it was pretty controversial.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it was.
So I'm saying it was but to say, I think a lot of people would argue that calling Sean Casten an extremist is completely different. So yeah, I think Marlon's editorial or column was pretty interesting.
All right, so that was a tangent from what I really wanted to talk about, and I'll be talking about this with Ken Davis, our guest, coming up. But the editorial about Michael Madigan, I thought this was very well done. Whoever wrote it, I'm going to give Lorraine Forte credit. Let's just give
one
her
of the
credit.
Toms.
Somebody deserves credit for this because they sort of connected the dots. That's what the headline says: connecting the dots on Madigan, ComEd lobbyists, and your electric bill. So this is the instance where House Speaker Michael Madigan had an aide named Kevin Quinn who was accused of sexual harassment. But this is back in 2018 or 2017. I'm losing track of time. Madigan, under pressure, fired him. And then you finish the story. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then I guess he fired him 3 months after the accusations hit. I think once I think the media got hold of the story, and then I admit I'm one of those reporters who read this recently. It's a few months later, Madigan started getting checks from ComEd lobbyists. And then Madigan said that he was going to, he's I'm not going to stand for any sexual harassment in Springfield, and I'm going to have somebody investigate this. And it turns out the person, and he said he wanted an independent investigator, and it turns out the person investigating it is a sister of, I believe, two of the people that gave checks.
Yeah, from Commonwealth Edison lobbyists.
Yeah, and then the editorial starts off about, do you look at your monthly bill and ever think, how could it be so high? And at the end, it said that maybe you should, if you think your electric bill is too high, you can always challenge it. And there's a number on the back, and it said, or send a check to Kevin Quinn. Maybe that'll work.
Yeah, a little wise guy. Very good ending. And the issue, of course, is whether Madigan was doing two things at once. This is possible. Condemning the behavior of Kevin Quinn while engineering a fundraising effort to help Kevin Quinn. How about that? Ken Davis is going to pose and think about that because he's going to be on the hot seat to answer that question. And I think, yes, this is me. I think Michael Madigan was doing two things at once. He's multitasking. He was condemning Kevin Quinn while either looking the other way while he knew this fundraising attempt was going on, part of Kevin Quinn. Chicago politics, Romana, up to no good as always. All right, we need the time of the Romana rundown. We do a Smollett Gate update. What you got for me?
Well, this week, Sheila O'Brien. She's a retired retired judge.
Yes.
Who had asked for a special independent investigator to look in to see how Kim Fox's office handled the Smollett case and the dropping of the charges. Anyway, Jussie Smollett has his two lead attorneys, or now I think they're the sole attorneys, are California-based Tina Glandian and Mark Garagos. I think that's how you pronounce his name. She's saying that they're not licensed to practice in Illinois. So these two attorneys had filed, Judge Michael Tuman had ruled in favor of having a special investigator, special investigator looking into this, or special prosecutor, I should say. And so then these two attorneys, Smollett's attorneys, filed some motions, basically objecting to the special prosecutor looking into this, or special investigator looking into this. And so Sheila O'Brien filed these motions, that motion this week, saying that they're not licensed. And so those attorneys fired back yesterday, and Sheila O'Brien filed more motions in response to their motions. And so now these attorneys are just saying that, Tina Glandian said even a day before Sheila O'Brien had filed her motion saying that they're not licensed in Illinois, she said she contacted the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission and said, do we need more paperwork to represent them? So they're saying that we can represent Jussie Smollett in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And so that's the latest. I think the next court hearing on this matter, the special prosecutor matter, is July 31st. So I think that's Wednesday next week.
Oh, yeah. Jussie Smollett fired back last week. We talked about that briefly. It is truly extraordinary declaration. He's sticking to his guns that he was mugged. And now he's saying that that
the two brothers,
the Nigerian brothers, mugged him because they are anti-gay. It's not really a MAGA hat thing anymore. It's not a Trump thing.
But they did say that there was a white person involved.
There was some white guy.
Yeah, there was. That's what the I think there was a white guy standing in the background directing them, but.
Yeah, bug that one. No, there was some white guy in the general area. There was a white guy over there. Oh, well, it must be MAGA hat. There's a white guy. Looked a lot like Ken Davis, I might add.
So, I told you one of the brothers works out at my gym, and I saw him like 2 weeks ago. I told you, I texted you, and I'm like, I looked at him, and I was like, that's him. He was like working out on one of the machines, and I told you I take an interval training class, and the one of my instructors is of Nigerian descent and is young, and I'm like, and I asked him, I go, I hate to be like presumptuous, but do you know one of these brothers, or do you? And he told me, he goes, no, one of them goes to the gym. So I saw the other guy, and I go, isn't that one of the brothers? And so now I have my cards in my car, and so I'm ready. Like if I see him again, go, I know you guys aren't talking, but if you want to talk, here's my card. I am,
Ramona.
So I'm saying there's connections with this case everywhere you go.
That's pretty funny. Even at the gym, you can't get away from it. All right, Ramona Hussein, weekend tips. What are you going to see this weekend?
I don't know if I'm going to see any movies this weekend because I have a wedding to attend, but the next movie I do want to see is if I had to pick, it'd probably be the Quentin Tarantino movie, which I know you saw. I like some of Quentin Tarantino's movies. I think one of my favorites is probably The Reservoir Dogs. It was a remake, and I like Kill Bill. Those are like my top. I know everybody likes Pulp Fiction. Now when I look back, I think it was a little overrated. Sometimes he kind of annoys me. Like I just think he's just so gratuitous. So I don't know. I was wondering what your opinion was. I mean, I do like Leonardo DiCaprio and I like Brad Pitt.
Well, let me just say this.
Fans.
We are having a total Quentin Tarantino geek fest next Wednesday in the studio. We'll do a bonus feature. We got 3 Tarantino geeks will be in the studio. Sergio Mims will be in the studio. Chris Adams, who's a movie maker from the south side of Chicago, will be in the studio. And Chris Buddy, who's a movie maker from the north side of Chicago, will all be in there. They're all Tarantino freaks.
Cool.
They've all been assigned the homework of seeing the movie. I did my homework early. It opened last night. I was right there at a movie theater.
Not too far from where I was.
Not too far from where you were married and where you grew up. It's, in my humble opinion,
it's that one in Lincoln Village. Right?
Yeah. Is that what it's called? Lincoln Village?
Well, I don't know, not Lincoln Village. It's like it's technically Niles, but is it by like all these stores?
I thought it was Skokie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just got great sound. And this is what I'm saying out there, folks. You got to hear this movie. The sound in this movie is so good. The music is so good. The way he incorporates the songs from the 60s with the action, I found that really great. So it's really good to hear the music really clearly, but the dialogue, there's some scenes, Romana, classic Quentin Tarantino movie. There's a lot of scenes, okay?
Yeah.
It's a long movie. Some scenes you'll like, some scenes you won't like that much, but it's really important to hear it clearly. So anyway, I thought...
Did you watch The Farewell yet?
Have not seen The Farewell.
I saw that.
And thumbs up.
Yep, thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Yeah, that's on my list.
No, but I do want to see the Tarantino movie just because I think it's pretty much gotten pretty good reviews. Not to say that means I'm going to like it, but I do want to see it. Well, I haven't wanted to see one of his films at the last couple that he made. I wasn't super excited about it, so I haven't.
No, Hateful Eight was no good. I didn't like Reservoir Dogs. In fact,
you didn't like Reservoir Dogs?
No, I hated Reservoir Dogs. In fact, I had sworn off Quentin Tarantino after I saw Reservoir Dogs, and it was Jackie Brown's my favorite Quentin.
I don't think I ever saw that one, but everybody.
Leave the studio. Run.
I know
don't
everybody
walk.
told me. I think I saw bits and pieces of it. But I heard it was really good.
Flick. That's your assignment for next week. And then all next show, we're just going to talk about Jackie Brown. I could talk about Jackie Brown forever. Anyway, enough talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, on Wednesday, we'll be having the deep dive, Quentin Tarantino. You're more than welcome. I already invited Maureen O'Donnell.
Oh, yeah. We talk movies all the time.
Yeah.
She listens to my recommendations. I listen to hers. So.
Yeah, she really knows movies, but she's really down on Quentin Tarantino. But Maureen, I know you're listening.
We discussed this, actually.
Yes,
in the bathroom.
you did. Yeah.
No, with Maureen, I discussed why we don't like him.
Yeah, because I heard the same thing from the two of you. I told her the same thing I told you. Stop reading articles about the movie and go see the movie. Anyway, that's me and Quentin Tarantino. All right, Romana Hussein, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Friday, and I will see The Farewell, and you'll see Quentin Tarantino's movie. All right, very good.
Thanks.
Young Kenneth Davis is on deck. We're going to bring him on when we return.
And for the record, I love puppies.
Hey, everybody. What you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. Jeff. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
We knew three things. The first one is a hostile foreign government attacked our 2016 election for the purposes of helping Donald Trump get elected.
Right.
Part two, candidate Donald Trump welcomed the help.
Yeah.
Part three, when the federal government tried to investigate part one and part two, Donald Trump did everything he could to derail, stop, halt, obstruct that investigation.
Right.
That is a violation of the law.
Yeah.
If he were anyone other than President of the United States, he would be in handcuffs and indicted. And Mueller served that up and says, basically, by the time you get to the end of the report, there are all the facts, multiple examples of obstruction of justice. I can't indict.
Right.
It's up to Congress. And
I came up to the same conclusion,
Yes,
Senator.
there you go.
Wow.
So I read that and I thought, you know, I didn't take an oath to support Donald Trump. I took an oath to support the Constitution of the...
Hey, Playing now at Steppenwolf Theater, the world premiere of Ms. Black for President. It's inspired by the that's true as in it really happened, TRUE story of Joan Jett Black, America's first drag queen presidential candidate. You know who created it, D?
No.
It was created by Tony nominee Tina Landau.
Oh.
And you know who else created it?
No.
Oscar winner Terrell Alvin McCraney. You know him, Moonlight.
Oh, yeah.
For tickets, visit steppenwolf.org. That's Steppenwolf, like the rock group from the 60s.org.
Hang tight, millennials. All right, everybody. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Friday, July 26th is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions once again for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky Show. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A big, giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back our program. And, of course, today's show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. Thank goodness it is Friday, July 26th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, it's the return of former host of Chicago Newsroom and dear friend Kenny D. Ken Davis. He brought his own sign. Pretty cool. And it's the Ben Joravsky Show debut of Benny J. Show superfan, the one, the only, JGT, John Gleason Teskey. And now your host, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood superfan, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Yes, indeed. Ken Davis is in the studio. He's wearing his Quentin Tarantino t-shirt. He's all set to talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a movie he's not yet seen, but he's willing to talk about it, just like every other journalist in town. I've not seen the movie, but I read an article about it, so I'm going to talk about it. Does that irritate you as much as it irritates me?
I have decided to do all of my responses in Mueller, kind of like that.
I was wondering what that was. I can't hear you.
True.
That's your Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller, that's a pretty good impression, right?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. That's correct.
All right, we'll bring on young Kenneth. But what do you got for me, D?
All right, more from Lori Lightfoot's Chicago Tonight interview coming up. But first, we have an update in the national news. Oh. Joe Biden, you scrappy silver fox, you. Joe Biden's presidential campaign stuck it to Trump on Twitter today. The president complained about a poll showing him losing in a potential matchup against the former vice president. Now, Trump initially slammed Fox News for even discussing the network's latest poll. What are you doing? Which found Biden leading Trump by 10 points, 49% to 39% in a hypothetical face-off. Here's the tweet from Donald Trump. Let me see if I can get the ukulele here. Hang tight with me, everybody. Hold on. We got to bring the bit here to the show. 1 second here. Okay. All right, I can't find it. I'll just read it in regular Trump voice.
The fact that I've gone through a 3-year vicious witch hunt perpetrated by the lamestream media in collusion with Crooked and the Democrat Party, there can be no way, all caps, no way, with the greatest economy in U.S. history, that I can be losing to the sleepy one. Keep America great.
The sleepy one.
Call them the sleepy one. And here's the response from Team Joe Biden. I don't have a Joe Biden impression, so I'm just going to read it as Dennis. At Real Donald Trump, we know you love the polls. We're glad you saw the latest from Fox. Biden 49%, Trump 39%. You're losing by 10. Have a nice day.
Oh, Joe Biden. All right, the sleepy one. Ken Davis.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I have a question. The poll was 49 to 39. 49 for Biden, 39 for Trump. Now, admittedly, I'm not Dan Biss when it comes to mathematics.
And who is?
I mean, not even Dan Biss is not Dan Biss anymore. But if I add 49 and 39, it does not reach 100. So that means,
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, we're learning stuff today, guys.
Hold on, let me do that math.
God. And here I was thinking it was all over.
So you're telling me there's still undecided people out there with Donald John Trump? Is that what? Do you believe that? Or do you think those people are lying to the pollsters?
Yes.
Wait.
True.
Which is it's not a yes or no question.
No. I decided some time ago. I've made a couple of decisions since the last time I saw you, Ben.
Yeah.
My number one decision is that nobody's telling the truth to the pollsters. I mean, that's always been true, but it's especially true now. And this is why I was one of the people you were disparaging when you said, everybody was sending me this article. I was one of them.
We'll talk about
I would
that
like to think I was one of the first. But the whole thing about this question of whether Donald J. Trump is going to win the next election, because even if it's 17 million people more vote for whoever the Democrat is, he still wins the Electoral College. I think a big part of what's going on with polling is that, he never gets above 39, 40, 42, 43%. We've seen all that before. But what's not included is the 18% of people who are 100% with him, but would never tell a pollster that.
So you think it's that high?
Oh, I think it's huge. Yeah, I really do.
Well,
and again, I have no independent research to back this up. I don't have my own polling institute. This is just
winging it.
Well, this is why the Ben Joravsky show exists is for people like me to come on and just flap their jaws about stuff.
Damn straight.
But I believe this. I believe this in my heart. And I heard your heartfelt taking a part of the article, a couple days ago, whenever it was.
All right, you're talking about the Nate Cohn article. We'll get into it.
And I just thought, well, the thing that you're not taking into account here is all the people who are just flat out lying.
Well, yeah,
and
absolutely,
they're not going to be lying on behalf of the Democrats. It's the Republicans and the Trumpsters who are going to be lying, and there are lots of them.
Okay, so therefore, then you can't believe any public opinion. All right, let's just back up a bit.
I didn't mean to hijack the conversation.
No, that's fine. Conversations, man. That's fine. That's what we do it on the show. All right. Yes, indeed, you were one of many people sent me that article. It was an article by Nate Cohn,
right.
And he is, I don't know what his title is. He's like the numbers geek for the New York Times. He replaced Nate Silver, as I like to point out. Apparently, you have to be named Nate to get that job.
Yeah.
So Nate Cohn came out with an article, an analysis about a week ago, last weekend, I believe it was, in which he said that Donald Trump will probably lose the election by a greater margin than he did against Hillary Clinton in popular vote. But he will probably he could win get reelected because Electoral College is in his favor. The map is in his favor, and then he did this incredible deep dive into all these polls in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania,
and Florida,
And I brought on David Ferris, a political scientist, who ripped it to shreds. He has his own rebuttal, which I urge everybody to read. We should put it on our Facebook page, where he takes.
Cohen does.
No, Ferris has his rebuttal to Cohn. He's already done an analysis and pulled it apart. Cohn is just. Cohn's glad that we're talking about it.
Yeah. Just get the name right, as you're saying.
Get the name right. We'll get into that too. So anyway, that's the point you're making. And yes, you're absolutely correct. And I call this the Dennis theory. Dennis has stated all along that people are embarrassed to say they're for Trump.
So
they won't admit they're for Trump, and they'll say they're. So
it's like how many people read Playboy magazine in 1985 or something like that.
Yeah, well, I only read it for the articles.
Of course, that's what I said. Read.
Yeah, and I only got about I didn't read it that much, just maybe once a month. But anyway, so Dennis liked that one. Yeah, I got a laugh out of Dennis.
It's like that noise you made.
It's like he was just fond memories of all that reading.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a scene. Can I just say this? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the Playboy Mansion. Great scene, if I may say.
Shot at in what year?
What year was the scene? The year 1969. 1969.
That's okay.
I thought that was a trick question. When you were saying when did he shoot the scene? Like, how would I know? Apparently, I don't know. Last year, who knows? But anyway, the theory is that they just lie. Now, what I don't know is, are they lying about being undecided? And they're really going to vote for Donald Trump, or are they lying about being against Donald Trump?
No, they're saying they're undecided.
Okay, so just give the undecided vote to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I would give almost all of it to Donald Trump.
Okay.
Because if you are a you know in your heart that you're basically a narrow-minded racist and that you actually love what he's saying, but you don't quite have the nerve to go to one of his rallies, but you know you want him to be your president, and then you get this phone call and saying, "Hi, you want to know what?" "Oh, I don't know. I can't make up my mind."
I like the imitations. That's very good.
Hello.
Yeah. And so then you just lie.
Yeah, just say I can't make up my mind.
So now I have to say, Ken Davis was the one who predicted Trump would win 2016.
Thanks a lot, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome. And look, if you're an Elizabeth Warren guy, girl, if you're even a Joe Biden guy, girl, somebody calls you up and says it. You're going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm for Biden. I'm for." There's not going to be any equivocation about it. It's only Trump that people don't want to admit.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then it's a very close election. That's what
closer than it looks. Anyway.
Yeah, closer. All right. So maybe Cohen's right. Although, again, half the people that sent me the article were like, "Ben, gloom, doom, just jump off a building right now," and the other half were pointing out that the headline didn't match the map.
Yeah. There's
okay.
that.
So there were those people.
Yeah.
Ben, did you notice the map and the headline? Yeah, you're right. Look, Cohen's just making it up as it goes along too.
We all are.
Yeah,
we all are. But he has some numbers.
Yeah, he has some numbers. I can make up some numbers too. All right, let's get down to some business here. I have to tell you, I said this on the air, but I didn't do a very good job of saying it on the air, Ken, because I got distracted by Dennis insisting I do my Ken Davis imitation.
Let's hear that imitation, by the way. So good. No words.
I gotta say, I don't think it's fair. I mean, I don't know.
We love you, dude.
Ken Davis doing his Ben Joravsky imitation of Ken Davis. Now you're going to hear Dennis do his imitation of Ben doing Ken.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had my Ken Davis moment.
Yes, you did.
I never explained what it was.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell people what the original Ken Davis moment was? It took place on your show. Go.
Very briefly, I quit doing the show. Congratulations to all of us. And I had written to Lori Lightfoot, who had been on my little TV show 4 times, 4 like 1 hour long conversations about policing and all that kind of stuff. It were really good conversations. And I wrote to her and said, congratulations on winning. I'm going to do my last show on your, I think it was 3rd day in office. What would be the chances that you would do that show? And her people wrote back immediately and said, yes, we'll do it. So I thought, how cool is that? That's the, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, then we got some other division of the press office sent me a notice saying, no, she's not going to do it. And I just assumed she wasn't. And then the day before I get a call saying, okay, we're all ready. You can come over to, she's going to do it in her office. So we had to scramble and go over there and do the show.
Wait, time out. You're forgetting my favorite part of the story.
Someone was scheduled to be on.
Somebody else was booked once he realized that Lori Lightfoot wasn't going to show up. Who was that person?
Was it from the Sun-Times? Was it?
Wears hats.
Was it? Who could it have been? That was so nice
all right,
and
okay,
gracious
Ben.
to
All
step
right.
in.
Do we have to tell this? If I come on the show 20 more times, am I have to tell this story every single time? So I called Ben and I said, "Oh, Ben, listen, I'm leaving, and you're the guy who's done the most shows with us, and I'd love to have you on the last show. In fact, there's nobody I'd rather have."
That's what he said.
On my last show.
And then a day later, about that nobody I would rather have. Well, Lori Lightfoot said she'd come on, so beat it.
As though you wouldn't have done the same thing to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think I would have spared you the nobody I would want more. I might have spared you that.
Yeah.
I would have probably been like, I'm really desperate. I need you to come on the show. All right. So that was a tangent.
So yes, that was a tangent. So we start doing the show, and it's a pretty good show. I'm kind of proud of it. It was the last thing we did, and at one point, I take absolutely no credit for this occurring. I just said to her, well, one of the things that's definitely on your plate, is the FOP. You guys are going to have to sit down and negotiate a contract, and obviously, you're not exactly friends. How is this going to work?
Mm-hmm.
And to my astonishment, she just took off on this thing about, well, I've heard these rumors that the police, this was right before Memorial Day, that, that they're going to not, that they might not do full policing and all this, that, and the other. And I just reacted like probably anybody else would be as the first human being who'd ever heard her say that, just saying, do you actually really have evidence that that's happened? And she says, no, but I think it did, or it might, something like that. Anyway, I I put it out, on our little tiny social media thing that she had said this. Nobody saw it. And then somehow or other, I don't even remember exactly how it happened, but, somebody from the BGA, I think it was, right? I think it was the BGA.
The BGA,
yeah. Someone from the BGA actually got hold of it and then started running this tape. And the next thing I know, this thing is all over the place. And it's credited to just the number of ways they described our show. It was ridiculous.
Hilarious. My favorite part of the whole thing.
And my favorite was that she did it on the city's cable channel.
Yeah,
which,
I know that. No, that was like, she said it on the city's cable channel. Like, it was a public pronouncement. Right. I am going to take the public airwaves and then denounce the FOP. It was the Ken Davis show, okay?
Yeah. So anyway, that's what happened. So I had a tiny little moment of near fame on the very last of 400 shows. So that's how that worked.
And your reaction was typical Ken Davis. He was a little embarrassed by it all, like the attention it was called.
Yeah.
Because some media outlets did say they never called, they would have called it the Ken Davis show. Chicago News. I forgot what it was called.
Got the name already.
Yeah, well, I never knew the name because I kept calling it the Ken Davis Show, which it should have been. Nobody ever listens to me. So you were embarrassed by it. And the story.
Well, I wouldn't say embarrassed. I just didn't really feel like I wanted to publicize it very much because I thought that she had made a real misstep by saying that. And I didn't, frankly, want to be part of the machine that publicized that. I wasn't trying to hide it, but. I wasn't out there like banging the drum saying, "Wait, you hear what Lori Lightfoot said?"
Well, you put it out there,
I put it out there to nobody. But
the woman doth protest too much. Anyway, Shakespeare, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so the story has legs. And we've been talking about it all day today, Apologygate, where Lori Lightfoot is continuing to have a spat with the Fraternal Order Police. And so, just the other day in the city council, when the gentleman rose to address her and talk about how the need for Lori Lightfoot to negotiate a contract with the Fraternal Order of Police, she set off mic, there's that FOP clown. Yeah. And then the reporters, she was on a hot mic, so they want her to apologize. She came up with a non-apology apology, which is a joke. And so then now today, the head of the National Fraternal Order of Police has weighed in. He's outraged. That Lori Lightfoot would say these things.
He's just outraged.
He's outraged, as I like to point out. He's not similarly outraged when Donald Trump trashes law enforcement, as he does all the time. But when they do these stories, they have to recount. Well, this is not the first time that Lori Lightfoot has had troubles.
It has legs.
And they go, and then they'll have the whole litany, and then there somewhere she said. Now they don't even mention the show. I mean, it's just like she said on TV or something like that. So what do you think? Should she apologize?
I was going to ask you the same question. I'll go first. I don't think so. I think that what she said was it had integrity. She said, "Well, I did say that." And I'm sorry that I said it out loud. I'm sorry that you heard it. I mean, I think there's something very refreshing about that. Look, we know how she feels about these guys, and we know how they feel about her. And they are going to have to sit across the table and talk. But you know what? It might make for a more interesting conversation. It might be more honest. They all know they've said what they think of each other.
Well, I have already stated, you were en route here, so you didn't hear it. I think she should do a legitimate apology. I believe that we need more civility in politics these days, and that Donald Trump is not the representative that you should emulate. So I believe that mayors of the city of Chicago, for instance, should not trash the Fraternal Order of Police just on a knee-jerk level. They shouldn't trash the Chicago Teachers Union. Sometimes she goes into that direction. And I happen to have more friends in the Chicago Teachers Union than I have in the Fraternal Order of Police, but I believe in some level of civility. And so that's why I keep saying I would like to see the head of the National Fraternal Order of Police apply the same standards to Donald Trump in his calls for civility that he does to Lori Lightfoot, and he refuses to do that. So I just think there's a double standard there that Donald Trump gets to get away. We just got finished saying it. All these people love Donald Trump. They may be embarrassed to admit it, but they love when Donald Trump rips Mueller, rips Comey, rips FBI agents. and he's under. I mean, we just saw this article. This is unbelievable. I can't even get the word. The Senate won't spend money to protect our electoral, our voting machines from being hacked.
But did you read the second paragraph? Did you see why? Because they think the president's already done more than enough to protect the voting integrity of the country. So why spend more money?
Right.
I believe that's what Mitch McConnell said on his way out the door.
Yes,
yeah,
that's
we're
what
fine.
he said. Yeah, we're fine. We're okay. So where's the fraternal order police in that? The Democrats want to spend more money on law enforcement.
Yeah.
Protecting the voting machines is kind of law enforcement.
So, all right. So let's not waste a lot of time on this, but what if you were in that situation and you have strong opinions about people, and if someone heard you say on an open mic something that you really regretted saying, what would you say? Would you say, I'm sorry that I said that on an open mic. I'm sorry that you heard me say that. Or would you say, I'm sorry I have that opinion of you? I mean, how do you apologize for that?
Okay.
What is the appropriate apology?
Thank you for asking me that question.
You're welcome.
Thank you. God, thank you for asking me that question. The real issue is, what do you feel in your heart that you feel you should apologize for? So, for instance,
she said that. She said, I apologize for the fact that I said it out loud.
And I think that's that's not strong enough in this particular case, because this gentleman, Patrick Murray, who is a representative of the Fraternal Order of Police in the city of Chicago, was participating in a public meeting. Yeah. This we sued for the right as citizens of the city of Chicago to address our mayor.
True.
And we come before our mayor like a subject's coming before the king.
Correct.
And we're allowed, that's the great thing about democracy, we're allowed to go. The greatest believer in this was our mutual friend, Richard M. Daley. Every year held those budget hearings. I love those budget hearings because he sat there and and somehow or other, Richard M. Daley got through every single one of those budget hearings without calling someone a clown. And so you, as the mayor of the city of Chicago...
I personally heard him ask one day, where'd you come from? Where'd you park your spaceship?
Did he? I missed that one.
Yeah. He used to attack people all the time.
I don't remember it's not the South Shore here. He used to let what was his George Langford? What's his last name? I'm blanking on his name. Blakemore. Trash him. He goes, laugh and give him more. And then they always have the budget director who was like had the clock. Yeah. The 2 minutes is up, Mr. Blakemore. Give him more time. So anyway, I just think it's inappropriate.
But we digress.
I just think it's inappropriate for the mayor to be disrespectful to a citizen who is exercising his First Amendment protected right. That's just me. Civility.
So then the apology is something like, I disrespected you in a public place, and I shouldn't have done that, and I apologize for my misstep.
Yes, and that was inappropriate of me.
But don't think for a minute that I don't think you're a clown.
Yeah. Well, do you think I'm a clown? Well, you have to FOIA for that information. Anyway, but then, I mean, you can't have it two ways. You can't call for more civility in public spaces when it comes to Donald John Trump and then be uncivil. That's what I'm saying. It's good enough. That's for the Democrats. And it's also for the National Fraternal Order Police.
Can I say one last thing on that?
Say more.
I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. No, I do think there's a difference between something being accidental and something being intentional. I mean, it's and when it's accidental, it's just very difficult to apologize for. You know, I mean, it's like if I stood on mic and said to somebody, "Oh, you're just a clown," and then later regretted what I said, I would say, you know, I really regret that I did that, and I apologize to you for it. But
But people. Many times you say something that you regret, and what you really should look in on yourself is, I had this feeling. It's inappropriate. I mean, to call him a clown just because you disagree with him. You're the mayor of the city of Chicago, and somebody stands up and says, "This is my position," and that person has a right to say that. So when you say, "Oh, he's a clown," just because what? He disagree with him. Yeah. I just think that's inappropriate for the mayor of the city of Chicago.
Okay.
And I got a news for you folks out there, people who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad she did it." If she had done it to somebody that you liked, or somebody that you believed with, you'd be upset. And you would be happy about it.
I didn't. Well, yeah, okay. I wasn't saying that you
agreed that the guy was a clown.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, but you know what? You're probably right about that. And I was listening yesterday to the last question time with Theresa May. And
oh my God, they go at it there. They no apologies there.
That is some of the most wonderful exchange in the English language. And at the end of this, after they had been clubbing each other for like 15 minutes, Theresa May says, I do want to say this is my last time tangling with my name just dropped out of my mind, Jeremy Corbyn. And I know that he too is a public servant, as am I, and I thank him for his service. And also, I think I have had the good sense to leave, and he should do the same. Whoa! And that's how it ended with a note of civility, and I think that is so cool.
Yeah,
English.
That's so English, and I do like how they do that, where they get up and trash each other, but then they end it with the civility.
Rip each other apart.
Dee, did you have something you wanted to say, young man?
I was just going to remind you guys, we do have Lori Lightfoot's Chicago tonight.
Oh yeah.
You want to play a little piece of that?
Yeah, sure. We got I think 2 minutes and 52 seconds into it. Like I said, we're just going to play it and see how far we get here.
Now, is this about the thing with the?
I couldn't tell you. I'm just going to hit play.
Well, I mean, as a quick setup, I mean, Tony Preckwinkle, they had the whole exchange of letters and everything, and this was really kind of interesting because Lori Lightfoot says, and I think that's probably what she's going to say here, is that she had been talking with and meeting with Tony Preckwinkle all the way up to when that letter came out, and nothing was ever said about it. And then suddenly this letter is released in a kind of a public way. So she felt really jackpotted. I
see. I actually don't know if that's what he's going to play.
Hell of a setup. I hope it is. Here we go.
Okay, also, yesterday, landslide victory in another legislative initiative of yours, the Fair Workweek Ordinance, where employers now have to give workers a 10-day notice of their schedule. How did you assuage the concerns of safety net hospitals who say we need to be able to call in people in an emergency, every hour?
Well, I think we did it in a couple of ways. Look, first of all, this is a landmark and historic piece of legislation. This has been worked on for 2.5 years by certain business interests, certain labor interests, but they got stuck. And it looked like it was not going to go move forward in April before I took office. So we rolled up our sleeves. We knew that this was something important. And this piece of legislation covers two big industries that no place else in the country does, which is hospitals and manufacturing. But it was a lot of work, and making sure that we gave voices that hadn't been part of the back and forth an opportunity to have a seat at the table. My hat's off to our friends in organized labor, but also the business community, and particularly I want to say Chairman Sue Garza did a yeoman's job in really navigating a lot of different and competing interests. The safety net hospitals, we talked a lot with them about their precarious economic status, and really what's at heart there is they have not had an increase in Medicaid reimbursement rates in 15 years. So I committed to work with them at the state level and the federal level to change that those economics around to make sure that they're actually getting funding that's important to them in a timely fashion so they can take care of those who are sick and infirm but are on the lower end of the economic scale.
And we should mention their concerns with this was that they'd have to pay penalties and fines as much as $30 million a year to call people in at the last minute. Will they still have to pay these fines out
they're going to be
revised ordinance?
They will be subject to the penalties, but obviously we're going to work with them. We're giving them additional time to implement the necessary changes to build the infrastructure. And we recognize that hospitals are different, and so that's going to be part of the calculus. The one thing that's important is we built in a review period. So we're going to be looking at data and how this legislation is being implemented from both the worker perspective, but also the employer perspective. And if we need to go back in and tweak it to be responsive to the real life market forces, we'll do that.
Yeah, speaking of both,
there we go.
All right, yeah, that was not the I would wish it was the excerpt that you were alluding to. We can get into that, but I just say this. This to me, and Ken, feel free to vigorously disagree with me on this one. Okay, the Fair Work Week ordinance is set up to protect the rights of lower wage workers who, on a routine basis in many businesses and many industries, show up to work on any given day only to be told that their schedule has been changed, they should go home.
Correct.
All right. So you go home, maybe you have child care payments that you've already paid, you're out the money, you've spent the money to get to work. It's not only inconvenient, it's costly. All right. So this what it is intended to help. So opponents of this is so classic opposition. Opponents to the Fair Work Week don't talk about, let's say, a corporation like McDonald's, or some other national fast food chain or Walmart, etc. It's deep pockets that do this stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. They zero in on hospitals as though this is going to be really hard on a hospital.
People in the middle of heart surgeries are going to have to just leave.
And I saw Tom Tunney, who is the alderman from the 44th Ward, who's generally the champion, quote unquote, for the business community on any kind of issue like this, minimum wage, saying, what about the hospitals, the safety net hospitals? Mm-hmm. Suddenly they're worried. The business community is suddenly worried. They're the biggest opponents to any kind of national health care plan we have. We've utter insanity in our health care system. But suddenly, if you give...
And by the way, they're not for profit.
They're not for profit. Yeah. So do you share when I hear this?
No, you need go no further. I completely agree. And actually, as I was clattering down here on the L, I was thinking what I want to... The first thing I want to say when the mic's open is what an unbelievable experience it's been the last week or two to be living in Chicago and to feel good about some things that have happened in the city council.
Yes.
50-0 votes.
Yeah.
And this is, everyone agrees this is an imperfect piece of law, but my God, from one day to the next, you're going to get, yes, you and I, Ben, fortunately have probably never been in that situation where you go to work and you think you're going to get 8 hours and 3 hours later the restaurant isn't busy and they just say, go home. We're not going to need you anymore. No pay. You get 2 hours, 3 hours and you go. Those things are not going to happen in Chicago anymore. Well, obviously there are exceptions, but this is a major step forward. And when you take that into account with the ethics ordinance, also 50-0, which is going to have significant change, not right away. It's going to be 5, 6, 7 years down the road before you really see the benefits from what that's going to do, not having people being able to do tax law 15 minutes after they pass a tax, all that crap, right? So we are seeing some really significant improvements in Chicago's politics and in its governance in a very short period of time. And I'm kind of excited about it. I know we're both cynics and we both know that, this too will pass. But I just want this moment, The light is shining. I see a glimmering light through the fog up on the hill.
Okay.
And it makes me weepy.
All right. Whoa. Okay. Get him a handkerchief. The 50-0 vote, I got a big kick out of on the ethics issue.
I was listening,
because one of the votes obviously was Ed Burke. I'm like,
I was laughing. I thought that was
like Ed Burke voting.
You want to talk about a cynical vote?
Wow. Huh? Yeah, it doesn't get much more cynical. The whole ethics bill was designed to get you to stop doing what you're doing.
To either put you out of your business or take you out of the city council.
Yeah, I'll vote for it.
But nevertheless, what I'm optimistic about is that we have reached a point in our body politic where even a guy like Ed Burke has to say, I guess I better vote for this.
Yeah.
That's a pretty amazing thing.
While he decides whether he'll hold on to that property tax business.
Right.
All right, that's Ken Davis. I'm Ben Joravsky. We're going to take a break. We're going to bring on John Gleason-Teskey. We'll be right back after this.
The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by the Northwestern Summer Writers Conference. Now in its 15th year, the 3-day conference held in Chicago features a diverse array of workshops, speakers, discussions, and readings. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/writers.
I am who I am.
Don't you think voters should get to decide whether to change Illinois' tax system? That's what's about to be determined in Springfield. A yes vote by the legislature will put the fair tax on the ballot, so you get a chance to decide. Tell your representative, we deserve a vote.
I just saw that Nancy Pelosi, just before our meeting, made a statement that we believe that the President of the United States is engaged in a cover-up. Well, it turns out I'm the most, and I think most of you would agree to this, I'm the most transparent president probably in the history of this country. We have given on a witch hunt, on a hoax. The whole thing with Russia was a hoax as it relates to the Trump administration and myself. It was a total horrible thing that happened to our country. It hurt us in so many ways. Despite that, we're setting records with the economy, with jobs, with the most people employed today that we've ever had in the history of our country. We have the best unemployment numbers that we've had in the history of our country. In some cases, 51 years, but generally in the history of our country. Companies are moving back in. Things are going well. And I said, let's have the meeting on infrastructure. We'll get that done easily. That's one of the easy ones. And instead...
All right, that's enough of that guy. All right, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by Green Element Resale. It's located at 6241 North Broadway in Chicago. And guys, it's badass, all right? Listen to this. Furniture, appliances, lamps, books, clothes, electronics, probably candles. Ben, I know you love candles. We haven't done that one in a while. What's your favorite candle scent, by the way?
What was it? Cannabis?
Cannabis.
Yeah.
The cannabis candle, yeah. It's a thrift shop, guys, but it's the only thrift shop in Chicago that you would usually light a candle to get rid of the cannabis smell, but he likes the smell.
By the way, the guy sitting next to me last night at the movie, boy, was he reeking of cannabis.
Oh, yeah?
Tarantino. Oh, man.
That's not legal yet.
Yeah, I try to tell him that. Sir.
Say his name.
I don't know him. I was some random stranger sitting next to me in the movie theater.
Guys, it's a thrift shop, but it's the only thrift shop in Chicago that helps bring you the Ben Joravsky Show. So if you're ever on Broadway between Granville and Devon, tell them thank you. And go check out Green Element Resale, 6241 North Broadway, and find more information at greenelementresale.com. This noise right here you're about to hear right here. Oh, that's all the money you're going to save. Woo! Woo! Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. We are live. I twisted Ken Davis's arm. He's sitting around. We locked the door. We won't let him get him out.
One of my favorite things to do in the summer is walk along the lakefront bike path, walking path. And this year, more than in the 40 years that I've been doing it, you can walk from Montrose pretty much all the way to Oak Street and never lose the whiff of
marijuana.
Cannabis.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole damn lakefront.
Well, it sounds like the 70s, actually. That's sort of my memory of the lakefront on the 70s. Yeah. John Gleason-Teskey is joining us. Welcome to the show, John. First time on our show.
He's so excited. I've listened to every single show.
Literally
every single show.
All right,
day,
let's give you Ben Joravsky Show trivia. What is my nickname for that man right over there?
Your nickname?
Yes.
Your nickname for him is Dr. D. However, all his good friends and the proud city of Alton, Illinois, call him White Lightning.
Very good. Okay, you do listen to the show.
All right, before we go any further here, remember, everybody, right now posted on both Ben Joravsky Show Facebook and Twitter pages, it's the latest column from No, Not White Lightning Dennis. It's the latest Chicago Reader column from our very own Ben Joravsky. The article is titled The Anti-Trump. Ben, tell people what they're going to learn.
We talked about this a little earlier, and Ken, I don't know if you know this guy. Michael Flug is his name. He, for years, was the archivist at the Woodson Library on the south side of Chicago.
Yes.
An extraordinary human being. He died, and I wrote a tribute to, first, Maureen O'Donnell wrote a brilliant obituary. We had her on the show the other day talking about it. Yeah. And this man, he lived a life that is just the opposite of everything Donald Trump, the way Donald Trump has lived. He was a white guy who worked in the black community and did everything he could to preserve black culture as an archivist, preserving all kinds of letters and first drafts and manuscripts. Anyway, a great Chicagoan. He died a couple weeks ago, so I just felt it was important to pay tribute to him, the life he lived, and talk about him turning the greater content of Chicago politics.
There you go, some weekend reading material. Go check it out after today's show and after you listen to to those bonus interviews
Yeah.
at Benny J Show on Twitter and Facebook and ChicagoReader.com.
All right, it's a lot of obligations you're giving these people. First, you got to listen to the download bonus show,
And then you got to watch that movie Ben's talking about.
All right. So, John Gleason-Teskey, you have a Chicago resident now, but you have not always been from Chicago. Introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell them who you are and where you're from.
Hi, I'm John Gleason-Teskey. I am a local theater practitioner, director, actor. I did props once. I moved a woman in a full of chocolate bathtub around a mall once. But
A mall?
It was a merchandise mart. There's a woman filled in a bathtub filled with chocolate, and I pushed her around, and people would take chocolate from the bathtub. It was a weird gig. But
wait, so in other words, you worked for the chocolate company?
It was an event that had a bunch of candy. I was working for Red Moon Theater, which is a bunch of
good old Red Moon
installations and
Wait,
things like
Red
that.
Moon, was that the one that did the fire?
Yes.
Were you working for them when they did the fire?
I was not.
Okay.
It
was going to be. They were going to illustrate the fire. What was
It was
that
the
again?
Chicago fire,
The Chicago
right?
fire. They had a
Right.
boat that went down the Chicago River.
They had
Lots
lots of boats, lots of installations that they would like fake buildings that they would then set on fire. It started raining the day, so they had to like cancel a lot of the stuff. And nothing worked very well. That cost a whole lot of money.
Where was
It
that
kind of
rain when
flopped.
we needed it back in 1879 or whenever the Chicago fire was? But I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
But while I'm a proud Chicago resident right now, I grew up in the great state of Wisconsin, in the city of Milwaukee. Great place on a great lake. I've got a T-shirt that says so. And I also lived for 4 years in the city of Lincoln, Nebraska. So I've got some good Midwest credit.
All right.
Yeah, you do.
So you're from now on, you've been christened as our Wisconsin correspondent. Very important job.
Director, chief of the Milwaukee Bureau.
Yes, chief of the Milwaukee Bureau. Because it's an important job. We were just talking about how significant Wisconsin is
Yes,
in
we
the upcoming
were.
presidential
Yeah.
election. Young Kenneth was the one who sent me the article by Nate Cohn, and he takes a deep dive into Wisconsin. So what's your sense of the electorate in Wisconsin?
We like bold people, I think. It's a purple state, I think, in people's hearts as well as in the voting. I think there's a lot of farmers who don't get too political, but you know what? That Trump guy has got a lot of things that he's like. He's saying bold things. Ted Cruz is a little, but Trump is bold. And also, flip side, they are not a Hillary state. They are very much a Bernie state. Milwaukee is the home of the sewer socialists, which are not because they're gross. It's because they made a working sewer system and they're proud of it. I just got married, and the back drop is this beautiful bridge that we have in Milwaukee called the Hone Bridge, which is for the longest serving, I believe he's the longest serving, one of 3 card-carrying socialist mayors of the city of Milwaukee. So we like, bold politics one way or the other.
One way or the other. So in your humble opinion, if to win Wisconsin, who should the Democrats nominate as their candidate? Not saying you're endorsing this person, but just to win Wisconsin, who do you think the Democrats should nominate?
I would go with a Warren or a Bernie at this point. I think they're
Somebody left.
Somebody left, and go after the kids, because that's where the people are. That's where the 33% of the people who were voting eligible but did not vote in 2016.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
One of the things that Nate Cohn brings up, and I've read it in several different places, is that for reasons that escape me, Milwaukee is kind of like the last of the Midwest urban centers where the collar counties are no longer solid, reliable Republican, but Milwaukee is. What we're seeing here and in other places, Cleveland, Detroit, and so forth, is that the people who moved out into the suburbs in the 50s and 60s are dying off, and they're being replaced by younger people with more progressive views. And so this is what you're seeing in DuPage County and places like that in the Chicago area, that they're actually becoming sort of moderately Democratic. But that's not happening in Milwaukee. That has held solid, and that while Milwaukee might be a good Democratic place, the collar counties are really Trump. Is that you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that, and I think there is a certain working class ethic that is very blue in the city, and a working class ethic that is very red outside. Of we don't need any of these elites. We built our own houses on our own plots of land that we spent our own money on. That we worked hard and got our boat just like Donald Trump.
Like log cabins, we built our own ranch house. Yeah.
Which and sometimes when I talk to people like that in these in New Berlin, not to call out any place, but
having just done that.
Well,
Matt, it's Cedarburg.
But when you talk to these people, they honestly believe that. They don't want higher taxes. I mean, nobody really wants higher taxes, but they don't want higher taxes because they've but they've worked their whole lives, and they don't think of themselves as like rich big city New York liberals. They
All right, let me ask you this question. Ken was pointing out, and I think he's right, and it's the dentist theory.
Did you get a clip of that audio? I think he's right.
I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think he's right. Yeah,
I'll save
he's
it.
right. Yeah,
I'll
save that one. Ken Davis is right. He actually predicted Trump would win. All right.
Thanks a lot, Ken Davis.
Yeah, thanks for nothing. And when he made that prediction, all of a sudden polls changed. Voters, well, Ken Davis says it.
Hell, if this Ken Davis says it, I gotta vote for him.
But we digress.
All right, so young Kenneth and Dennis both say that people lie to pollsters and they're embarrassed to admit they're for Donald Trump. All right. So you're saying that people in Wisconsin are extremes. They're proud to be who they are. And so you don't give them that wishy-washy, middle-of-the-road Hillary stuff. So having said that, do you think that people in Wisconsin, even Wisconsinites, whatever they're called, are lying? Because if they believe in extremes, if they're unashamed to be who they are, then they wouldn't lie to the pollsters. So what do you think it is? Do they lie to pollsters or do they tell the truth?
And to clarify, I don't think that they are extreme. I think they like extremes. I think they like bold statements. I think they got the good Midwestern. We're just making our own lives. We're just taking care of ourselves, and Milwaukee is one of the biggest small town of a city, and I think that they might be lying to themselves that they're not gonna end up voting for Donald Trump. I think that's what it is.
Whoa.
I know a lot of people who, I think of young people even who I think of as moderately liberal in, music tastes and pop culture and, everything non-political. And we talked about, what'd you vote for? Well, it was back and forth. But her emails, and I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
No.
Her email.
It was the email.
So I think there's a lot of people like that out there. I think there are people who, I wouldn't be voting for that man. But the abortion issue, it seems like, I know they're going to vote.
So So what do you think is motivating a Wisconsinner? What are they? Wisconsinites? Cheeseheads.
Cheeseheads.
What motivates a cheesehead to vote for Donald Trump?
I think it's the same thing. I think it's the enemy. I think it's the Democrat. I think it's if they feel disenfranchised with the Democrat, whoever it may be. Despite the fact that I think a lot of the Democrats are going, I'm trying to do good things for you and for your farms and for your middle class life and for your wages that you got through union values. I think they're trying to appeal that way. But if it's a Hillary Clinton that doesn't show up. If it's a Hillary Clinton, if it's a Clinton from New York up there doing those things and saying, well, you're a purple state, so you're going to vote for me anyway, right? That's what they get pissed off about.
So this is something that one of the things Illinois and Wisconsin share is that we are a big city stuck in the middle of Alabama, basically. And I've just been mystified by the fact that Donald Trump has not been good to farmers, even though he did give them $30 billion. He has not helped them. And I've never understood how rural America, let's not say rural, agricultural America could be so supportive of him. And that seems to be happening. That seems to be the case in Illinois. And it looks to me like it's the same in Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, explain yourself.
I am of the political persuasion of the kind of person who listens to the Ben Joravsky show every day.
I see.
So, so personally, it doesn't always make sense to me. But I think it's part of it is that he does bail them out the 16 or 30 or however many $billion.
Well, it was $16 billion for the trade embargo.
Right.
And I don't know if he actually bailed them out in that, because I was talking about this yesterday, John. Yesterday, there were proposals to cut food stamps. The food stamps program is a subsidy that helps farmers in addition to helping people who are
the
poor.
farmers like it.
Yeah, that's why the farmers like it. So I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to helping the farmers? All of a sudden, like, you can help a farmer. This, I think, is a Republican attitude. So as long as you don't help a poor person. Okay.
That was one of the genius things of when Congress worked, right? Was taking the people who advocated for the farmers and people who advocated for the urban poor and saying, here's a program you could both like for completely different reasons. Yeah.
Actually, the reasons are kind of the same. They're both subsidizing one or the other. All right, now let me ask you this. So I hear you. What you're saying is that there's a loyalty to Trump that to a degree trumps, if you will, any kind of program that he's pushing. So how far will cheeseheads go with that loyalty? In other words, if Trump, will they remain loyal to Trump if he pulls back farm subsidies? Will they remain loyal to Trump if his tax policies hurt them? Will they remain loyal to Trump if they're suddenly overcome with pollution because of Foxconn, etc.? How long will they remain loyal to Donald Trump in the face of reality?
Longer than I'd like. We had a guy, my childhood friend's next door neighbor, a guy by the name of Scott Walker, who was in office for way too long.
Is that right? He was the neighbor of your childhood friend?
Yep. And so I would go over to her house, and there'd be two little children running around and shouting. And I'm like, man, that house over there. Who lives over there? And it was
Scott Walker.
Scott Walker.
Hey, take care of your kids.
My dear friend Ezra Olson, who also lived in that house, wrote a lovely thing about how he, as a student, as a 20-something student right now, is being screwed over royally by Scott Walker. But they played catch one time, so I guess give and take. Yeah, and I think that's people like the bold. Scott Walker was doing things. Scott Walker was taking action. I think if you were of the opinion that action needed to be taken, the budget needed to be cut, then Scott Walker was doing something, and the fight against him all emboldened people to support him even harder. I mean, there are giant protests outside of the Capitol for Scott Walker. There was a pizza place in Madison that was taking orders from anybody who would call in, and they would just bring pizza to everybody protesting, and they got money from all 7 continents, including Antarctica. Like, this huge protests against this guy. And they still voted, and they voted for him again, and then they voted for him again, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
I was at one of those in Madison, one of those protests in Madison on a really, really frigid day in January, and the guest speaker was none other than Sarah Palin, right? And I mean, there were 100,000 people in the square there. It was packed. And then it's like, no, Sarah Palin! And she comes running out wearing a white blouse. Just like, it's like 5 below zero. And, hi, everybody! It feels like Alaska here!
It's actually not a bad invitation. I just have to say that. All right, so having said, I'm trying to get into the mind of a Wisconsin voter. And I think you're right. This notion that they like somebody who they like the notion of an extreme point of view, somebody who seems to take a strong stance. They like to think that they themselves take strong stands. What would be advantageous to the Democrats at this point in winning over the Wisconsin voter to take the strong stand of impeaching Donald Trump, let the chips fall where they may, or to take this sort of namby-pamby Pelosi / Axelrod / Emmanuel / Obama. Well, we're just going to get along with everybody.
I can't let go of Emmanuel, can I? No.
No.
And not to the impeachment, in your humble opinion?
I think the impeachment. I think, let's air out all that laundry. Let's have this fight. Let's go into the streets and do it. Let's get every information into the hands of everybody. This Mueller thing was not a Nixonian, nightly news highlight of everybody sitting down. He was boring, and he was boring on purpose, and he said he was going to be boring before that, so we shouldn't be surprised. But I think the more we go into this, the more Muellers we drag out, the more dirty laundry we would get into, the more I think it's not about winning over that guy with Trump, plastered on his barn 2 stories tall. That guy's done. We got to outvote that guy. And he'll come around in, 2024 maybe, and vote our way. We have to get the people who, Clinton, Trump, I don't like either of them, I'm going to stay home. Those are the people we have to get. In Wisconsin and everywhere, mostly everywhere else, the states that Trump won, he barely won. He won a little bit. He just barely got over. The 2.86 million votes that Hillary Clinton got above Donald Trump are from deep blue, where so the 2.86 million votes don't count. We knew they weren't going to count. If you spread out the Electoral College evenly, they're still not going to count. So we got to get more people voting. We got to get more of Milwaukee voting. We got to get more than half the country didn't vote. Half the country didn't vote.
Yeah.
So
so impeachment go. I'm with you 100% on that one. I hope Nancy Pelosi is listening.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the NAACP, really vocally calling for impeachment to move forward. And the Democrats are in a kind of a weird position on this because, boy, do they need African American votes, right? So, if African American voices are springing forward and saying, we want that impeachment, don't you dare fail us on this, they're going to have to move forward on it. And whether it's a good idea or not, I don't know.
Well, here we go. Let's just think about what each of you just said. On one hand, the black vote says impeach him. On the other hand, my expert on all things cheeseheads said that you can win over white voters in Wisconsin by taking a bold stand and impeaching him. Impeach the guy. Yeah. And let me just say this right now. I'll say this a million times. The Republicans would have already started the impeachment hearings.
God, they would have had a cell already cleared out for him.
The cell would have been waiting for him. That's Ken Davis and John Gleason-Teskey also in the studio. We'll be right back after this.
I love antique shows and antique fairs.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Discover the breadth and majesty of Chicago's architecture on a Chicago Architecture Center bus tour. From bungalows to Bauhaus, our expert docents will share the fascinating stories behind our city's architecture. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a bus tour right now. Oh my, look at that wonderful piece of architecture. Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident. Our friends and co-hosts at the Chicago Sun-Times are offering you, yes you, our listeners, an exclusive deal on unlimited digital access to all of the stories that you love. Unlock every feature, video, and podcast just like the Ben Joravsky Show by signing up now for a digital subscription. Ben loves digitally subscribing to things, by the way. For a limited time only, you can test out our digital access for only $1. Seriously, $1. There's no reason to not give it a shot. Stay up to date on breaking stories. Get the deep dives and investigations from Sun-Times reporters. Cheer for the big games with the best sports team in the city. And go deep inside City Hall with best in-class political reporting. $1 for your first month. $1. You can't do better than that. back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us to the weekend.
Yes, that super cool music means the end of another super cool show, but it's not over yet. And I want to thank John Gleason Teskey. Not only does he know everything about Wisconsin, not only does he direct plays, not only does he take a woman around the merchandise mart in chocolate. Was it the merchandise mart?
It was merchandise mart, yeah.
I mean, a bathtub filled with chocolate. He plays a mean piano. That's JGT right there, all right?
He's good.
He's really good.
Don't tell my childhood piano teacher, because she would be very disappointed if I suddenly got good.
I did not know that. You took piano as a child and you didn't practice.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, well, he should emulate Kenny Davis. He can play the piano with his eyes
He's
closed.
really good.
All right, do you got an update for us?
Absolutely, I do. Here we got more of Lori Lightfoot on Chicago tonight. Did you watch this, by the way, Ken Davis?
I listened to it.
Okay, all right. It's Paris Schutz conducting. This may be the first one that he's had with Lori Lightfoot. I'm not sure. I haven't seen many others. So we're going to just continue and hit play and see what happens. Oh, my. Okay. Hold on. Paris Schutz plays a mean piano. Let's do Leah's last word. And then once we get to that, then we'll do the Paris Schutz.
Your famous introduction?
Oh, absolutely. Leah, she's a fantastic editor and intern here at the Ben Joravsky Show. Absolutely. She does an amazing job. Seriously, she makes us stay current and look cool on Twitter and Facebook. So we decided to give her her own segment here on the program, and we like to call it Leah's Last Word. How's it going, Leah?
How are you?
Good.
Okay, my question is, some guests came on the show earlier this week and debated about this. What is more important in the upcoming election for Democrats to get voters to turn out or to convince swing voters who voted for Trump in the last election?
To flip. So persuasion, or what was the other one? Motivation. I think that's how they phrase it, right? Motivation versus persuasion. We'll start with young Kenneth Davis.
I think I'm going to come down on the getting people out to vote rather than trying to swing Trumpsters over. There is the biggest problem that we have is that Democrats are less motivated, generally speaking, than Republicans are, because Republicans know they're a minority in the country, and so they know they got to work harder. And too many Democrats have this, don't vote, it only encourages them kind of attitude. And it's justified living where we live. I mean, our state and our city has been corrupt in so many ways for virtually all of our lives. And so it's easy to just think, well, it's just, that's what politicos do. I'm not going to be a part of that. And if there was ever a time when the message needs to go forth, from every hilltop that we need to get everybody out there to vote that we possibly can. And I think that that's one of the real successes of, forgive me, I just forgot the name of the organization, the big, the people who are doing all the voter registration stuff. Indivisible.
Oh, Indivisible.
I'm sorry. I was going to say unforgivable for some reason. Indivisible. I think that's one of the real secrets that they have unlocked is getting people to get involved with government and to think, hey, maybe I can make a difference if I attend these meetings and that kind of thing. So that would be my vote.
Motivation. Okay.
I'm 100% on the motivation train. Ken brought up the NAACP making impeachment sort of a racialized issue. That this isn't just like a thing that these politicians are dealing with. This is like Black folks need to get involved in this, care in this, and I think that's sort of the environment we need to go to. Jamie Andrade on the bonus episode was like, we need to go to our neighborhoods, where we are, and talk about this, and talk about how voting needs to happen, and talk about why you should come out. And I say that across the board to whomever, wherever you're living, if however much you're leaning one way or the other, because when more people vote, more liberal, more progressive policies win.
So would you call the voters who voted for Trump in the last election like a lost cause, like that we can't get them back on our side?
No, I wouldn't. Well, yes and no. What I would say is that the people who voted for Trump are almost everybody who actually went out and voted for Trump is going to vote for them again. I don't believe that there's any fall off at all. I mean, not significant statistically. There may be some who are disenchanted with him, but they're not going to vote against him either. They're going to be the ones who stay home. And of course, the other thing we don't know is is there any possibility there's going to be a Green Party candidate or a third party candidate of some kind? Because I've already been having conversations with friends of mine who live in Illinois saying, I'm not gonna vote for Bernie or whoever the Democrat is, because it doesn't matter. Illinois is going to go for the Democrat, so I can give my vote to somebody else. And that's essentially true, but I guess my feeling at this point is I just want that raw number to go up, even if we do live in a state that's electorally safe.
Yeah, I have those same kind of conversations, and I'm like, but you're gonna vote, right? And shaking them. I think absolutely getting people to vote in this next election is what we should be focusing on. And then if the people who voted for Trump and then might vote for Trump again in 2020, they might come to say, oh, you know what, I like healthcare. Oh, you know what, I like, you know, my streets are cleaner. My crops are getting bought by places that want them. You know, then they'll come around. I think that the best way to get them to come around is to win the election anyway.
Yeah, show them what can be done better.
So, Leah, do you have an opinion on motivation versus persuasion? How do you're our Z expert, Z generation expert, to get your generation to vote? Do you motivate them or persuade them?
I think definitely motivate. Not enough people my age vote. We took a poll at my college to see how many people turned out in the last midterm, and it was something like 10%, and we were all we're all of voting age, so I don't know why 10%? We don't. Yeah. Good
God. Oh my Lord, 10%.
Well, what do you think it would have been when you were at
when I was at
Harvard?
The Harvard, the Midwest.
Right.
Here's the deal. I've said this many times before. My mother, may she rest in peace, was a New Deal Democrat, and we were going to vote. And,
that's true.
And she just, we turned 18, you're registered. And there's an election coming up, and I'm from Evanston, proud to say that. We had a congressman running named Abner Mikva, and my mother would make me schlep in from Wisconsin, where I went to college, to vote. You got to vote for Abner Mikva. Mm-hmm. And I'd always be behind, so we never do the absentee ballot. So I'd literally get on a Greyhound bus and come home to vote. Yeah. It just was taught to me by my mom. And so when I hear that, it's just like my first thought of, where are the parents?
Well, I asked that because, I just wonder about, actually, I'm just thinking in my cohort, when we were first coming of voting age, that was LBJ and the Vietnam War. So there would have been very strong motivation to vote then, but I'm not so sure after that. I mean, I bet you if you looked at like 1972, 76, 80, and you looked at the 18, 19-year-old vote, you wouldn't see that.
You would not have voted? Let's see, Bernard Carey running against Richard M. Daley?
I'm saying.
When you said 1980, that's the first election that popped into my mind.
I know. And I wasn't going to give it to you. I know. All right. So what? So you're a savant. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. How about you, John? Were you taught by your mother or father the essence of voting, the essentialness of voting?
I think it wasn't like as strictly instilled as it was.
You're getting on that bus.
But yeah, I think it was definitely you should probably vote. You can, why not? And then I think that the first election that I actually voted in was the Obama presidential election, and he was like, well, I'm gonna reform student loans, and I was like, I'm gonna have student loans. So I'm voting for you. Done. And then I would like convince people who are also going to college. I'm like, he's working on student loans, and we all have student loans, and they're like, oh, maybe I should vote. But that's not true for everybody. I've had roommates who I go, hey, your absentee ballot's still on the table. The election passed a while ago. Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now let me ask you this question. Which candidate, when you said Obama, this triggered in my
Bernie
thought.
Carey. Oh, sorry.
Yep, Carey, 1980. Which candidate is the least likely, in your humble opinion, to excite cheesehead voters? Which Democratic candidate is the least likely to excite? Of the 4 or 5 that are,
we're talking about the 4 and then also Mayor Pete.
4 plus
right?
1.
I'm 100% down for the 4 and then also Pete.
Mayor Pete.
I would say Biden or Harris, depending on who you're talking about. I think if Harris comes out, still comes out swinging. I think if she goes to the base of the Democratic Party, not white people, the most consistent Democratic voters, if she goes to those groups in Milwaukee and the surrounding areas, then they'll be like, yeah, we'll get with her. But Biden's kind of boring. But likewise, if Barack Obama's coming around, similarly, he's exciting. And if we get the Obama-Biden, buddy cop, tour, that could be exciting.
Well, Ken, I find it, so many people come through here bashing Biden on this show all the time, John. And you're not alone, and it's just
bashing Biden.
Biden, and it got to me the other day. I finally had a breakdown. I went, where were you guys for the last 8 years? You loved him when he was with Barack. So what? I'm having a Ken Davis moment. I mean, is Barack Obama already unpopular?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so.
That's how soon
I don't think you could build much of a campaign on, Barack Obama at this point.
Yeah.
Although that's not really true. If he got out and started going out on the road, he would bring out huge crowds. I'm sure he would.
Yeah. People just very weird. All right, before we go, I have to ask Ken Davis the Michael
Quentin
Madigan
Tarantino.
question.
Oh,
folks. By the way, speaking of which, I got a text. Wow, that text I got, Sergio Mims.
And that theater is in Village Crossing, by the way, in Skokie.
How did you know that?
I don't live far from there.
The brain on brain. Oh yeah, that's right. It's like right near the northwest side of the city of Chicago. In fact, there's a Barnes and Noble. Is that Barnes and Noble technically in the city of Chicago or the village of Skokie?
No, I think it's in the village of Skokie, if I'm not mistaken.
Anyway, if you really want the clear sound, you go to that theater. Sergio Mims just texted me, our movie expert. He said 2 thumbs way up. He just saw a matinee.
Uh-oh.
He said he loved it. He can't wait to be on the show Wednesday.
How about that?
The Geek Fest. All right, Michael Joseph Madigan, we're going to close with this. Get Ken Davis's opinion of this. Great editorial in the Sun-Times today pointing out the connecting the dots. Michael Madigan, all right, our House Speaker, and his one of his chief political lieutenants back in 2017, Kevin Quinn, was caught making sending out sexual harassing emails to Elena Hampton, and he was forced to step down. Madigan apologized, said it was a disgrace, said he was going to get to the bottom of rooting out all sexual harassment by the Democrats in Springfield, et cetera, change the climate, the culture there. And Kevin Quinn he's also the brother of Marty Quinn, was just sent out into the wilderness, dispatched to be long forgotten. Turns out that he was getting checks from various lobbyists for Commonwealth Edison, who somehow or other found it upon themselves to send him checks. So the Chicago Sun-Times raised the question, was this just coincidence? Did these lobbyists for Commonwealth Edison just happen to send checks to this guy, Quinn?
I got one.
Oh, that answers that question.
I like 3 or 4 of my friends, we've been getting these $1,000 checks from ComEd for some reason.
Have you been sending them to Kevin Quinn?
Oh, I forgot that part. It says, please forward this to Kevin Quinn. No, I'm lying.
Yes, that would be a lie. So coincidence? Was there? Were they engineering a campaign on behalf of Kevin Quinn? Was it coincidence, or were they engineering a campaign on behalf of Kevin Quinn? Ken Davis, your answer.
I will answer this question by making an announcement right here on the Ben Joravsky Show.
Okay.
After literally decades of holding out and being on the side of not wanting term limits, I've always argued that they're a terrible thing. I think this one has broken the back for me. I think it's like if we if people can stay in office for this long and run this kind of a, at least easily to perceive as fully corrupt kind of operation right in front of us. Yeah. And if Ed Burke, who we knew was passing tax bills in the city council and then 15 minutes later running across the street and meeting with people to see how we knew these things. I reluctantly say the only way we can get around that is by just saying, you know what, you're only going to be in office for 10 years or less, and that's it.
All right, then let me put the question.
So I guess that answers your question.
Yes, that it was not a coincidence. There was an orchestrated effort.
If anybody thought it was, then... Oh, well, God help them.
Yeah. So, John, I'll leave the final question to you, and that is this. The basic point that Ken is making is a very sound one, that the voters in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois are incapable of making an astute choice when it comes to electing officials. Should we limit their ability to elect the same olds by imposing term limits, or should we just allow democracy to reign and give people the choice, whatever choice they want for the rest of the person's life? Go.
I'm pro term limits personally. I think that will bring the conversation to politics more, as opposed to, well, my name's Daley, and you liked it Daley before, I liked it Daley, and he's done an okay job for the last 50 years. Well, and the 14th Ward looks cool to me, like the streets are clean, whatever. So I'm gonna keep voting for Ed. And if somebody has to leave, can't keep doing that, and then someone else has to jump into that seat, we might see, a different Burke, and then a Burke's grandson, fulfilling those places. You're not going to be able to get rid of that fully, but if that's, every 10 years, you're going to run out of Burkes. You're going to run out of Daleys.
Yeah.
So you got to shake it up a little bit, and I think the more people have to get involved, the better.
Well, I am all over the map on this one, but I did vote for Pat Quinn's referendum for term limits for the mayor of the city of Chicago, and that was in November 2018, and then we had a shakeup, and I just want to point out before we break that Pat Quinn's the Mayor Rahm tag team with lawyers for Michael Madigan to bury that referendum. They were unable to kick it off the ballot, so we got to vote on it. And now, Ken and John, what they've done is they've through their challenges to that referendum, they've essentially been able to bury the results of that referendum. So we don't know what we vote. We had an election, we voted on the election, but we do not know the results of the election. And I think that sort of proves that the other side on this issue will go to extreme lengths to keep us from having a term limits, which makes me want it even more. So there we go. I'm with Kenneth Davis on that one. And with that, John,
you're a latecomer to that though too, right?
Very late comer.
I mean, I think we've both agreed all through the years that it's like it's true you get Daley for 50 years, or 20 years, but hey, it's what the people want.
I'm still like tomorrow. If you ask me, I may be blowing in a different way. You know what I mean? But what they've done to Pat Quinn's referendums irritates me so much. But people voted. Let's just at least tell us that they don't want us to know how we voted. It would be dangerous.
It's not good for us to know.
Yes, keep them ignorant, and then get mad when they vote for Donald Trump. Yeah. That's the other part. Wow. Okay. Anyway,
can I tell you one thing?
Yes.
Real quick. Right, just about as we're speaking, maybe about a half an hour ago, steam engine number 1404 pulled into West Chicago. And it's parked out there for the next couple of days. It is the world's largest steam engine. It was sitting for 60 years out in Wyoming somewhere. And the UP Railroad spent like $3 million to have new parts made. And they've rebuilt this huge steam engine. And it's traveling around the country. And it's going to be in Chicago for 3 days. And I've seen another one that's just, it's wasn't operating. There hasn't been one operating since 1950. And you stand next to that thing and you are in awe of what man was capable of doing in those years when everything there was nothing digital. You had to go out and hammer it, It's an amazing site. I want to go out and see it this weekend.
All right, very good. A recommendation from Ken Davis. I, of course, will be seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, you hear that train?
Oh, you can hear it from here. You can hear it all the way from West Chicago.
Oh, man.
So you look at the steam engine. I'll go look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Both powerful statements.
Yes. Ken Davis, John Gleason-Teskey, thank you very much. Also want to thank Romana Hussein, who was in the show earlier. Leah did a great job. Of course, the man,
Thanks,
the
Leah.
myth, the legend. And as John can tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Dr. D, give yourself a raise.
No one calls me that.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
See you, White.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com/Joravsky, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. The bonus interviews are incredible this weekend. Go check them out. And hey, downloaders, we do live stream this program Tuesday through Friday, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. Enjoy your weekend.